Hey guys, welcome back to the movie discussion pocket dimension where time does not exist and the only thing that matters is film. I'm Jay, here as always with Cole, and today we're going to be discussing the horror shocker drama from 1981, Possession. And this is a film that was on the Video Nasties list and banned for many years in the UK. And when it first came out, it was pretty much cut to pieces until maybe 20 years ago it was released in the director's cut format, and since then it's kind of developed a cult following since the director's cut was released. So yeah, man, I told Cole to hold his thoughts on the film until we got started, because this is one I've kind of had on my list since we started the show to do, so I'm kind of interested in your thoughts.
Yeah, because it is one I had never seen up until this point. I knew kind of the title, and I knew that it was one of the films that had been banned in the UK and stuff, and that's really all I knew. I didn't know much about the filmmaker, the director. He's a Polish director, Andrzej Zulawski. This is I think it's his only English language film. Most of his films were actually in French, usually with Francophone actors, including later on the actress Sophie Marceau did several films with him, and he actually was married to her for quite a few years. And they have a son together, too. Mm-hmm. And they were married from 1985 to 2001. Zulawski just passed away a few years ago, I think in 2015, and he was making movies right up till then. And I've seen none of them. So this was a good sort of introduction, I guess, to his style. From what I found, he was, not a mainstream guy. He did sort of art house type movies, and that you can definitely see it in this film, Possession.
Sure.
Which, like you said, a horror, shocker, drama. It's a movie that's difficult to classify genre-wise, because it just sort of touches all sorts of different genres. But it certainly has, some horror elements and stuff. But it starts off, at least the first 40 minutes or so, are just sort of like a very intense drama. The movie centers around a divorce or a collapsing marriage, which is really where everything comes from. The whole thing is kind of an allegory for it, because at the time, his first marriage had ended, and Zulawski was writing the script in the midst of that. So a lot of the stuff that's shown here is a reflection of sort of his feelings on that in a very extreme sense, in that some really extreme stuff happens in the movie. But
yeah, I was watching some of the director's cut or the director's commentary, and he was saying that it was quite a bit of it was autobiographical. Even some of the direct dialogue was taken from his, arguments with his wife. But
crazy, because there's some really extreme dialogue going on here.
There's
a lot of ranting and raving.
Well, physical violence and self-induced violence.
It's a very intense watch. This is not a movie you just throw on in the background, or you relax or calm down to, or do something else about it. It's a very intense movie that's very engaging right from the start, which is cool. Because it's weird, because the full cut of the movie is about 2 hours, and while horror elements and stuff do find their way into it, it's not for about the first 40 minutes. But that doesn't mean the first 40 minutes are slow. Mm-hmm. They're not. They're still very frantic and stuff. It's just that suddenly things do sort of turn. But even from the outset, it's a very intense, frantic film with a lot of really extreme drama going on, almost to the point where I wonder if it's sort of just a European thing or not. But a lot of it almost comes across as overacting. There's a lot of yelling and gesturing. And again, I don't know if maybe that's not European. I'm not saying all European movies are full of overacting. But one thing that I do think that shows up in this movie that I think at least people in North America, probably other places might too, it strikes them, that I think is a European thing, is there's a lot of just touching. A lot of the characters just touch each other in at weird, inappropriate times, in awkward ways. Like you're having an intense discussion with somebody, maybe even somebody you don't know too well, and your hands are all over them, or they're touching you and stuff. There's a lot of that, which is really odd to see. But again, maybe that's more of a European thing, and also this is sort of an extreme movie, so maybe it was just to help emphasize the intensity of some of these scenes. But I don't know. There's just a lot of touching, which and some of them is especially funny, like when he's confronting his wife's lover, It's funny, the last movie we did before this was High Fidelity, and it actually has like one thing in common with High Fidelity in that it follows a male protagonist whose relationship has fallen apart with a woman, and the woman has started during the interim has started seeing another man, and in both cases, the man is kind of seen as sort of like a progressive, new age type of guy who's supposed to be in touch with his feelings and very modern. Like it's the same sort of deal. Like in High Fidelity, you had what's his name, Tim, the tall guy. Anyway, that actor. Anyway, we'll come back to him. But anyway, you had him, and he's supposed to be some sort of like therapist. He's got like a ponytail, and as he's describing him, like he said, he's like, oh yeah, I remember all the horrible smells from his cooking, and his music was like whatever world music was trendy at the time. And he's always talking about like being very mature and acting like adults over the situation and stuff, and getting their feelings out. And this character, Heinrich, is kind of similar in a way. He's a bisexual swinger who lives with his mother, and he's supposed to be very in touch and open with his feelings and stuff, and that's what it's kind of funny how similar they are. And he does more touching than anybody else. Like the first time he comes to see him, Heinrich's like touching him all over as they talk, and you're like, what are you doing? He's talking about how you're fucking his wife, and you've got your hands all over him. It's like, is this your clumsy way of trying to tell us that he's bisexual? I don't know. I'm not going to get up on this, but as I've said, but I think I've mentioned before in previous shows, like there's some like really clunky and outdated tropes out there in movies, especially older ones that really bother me. One of them is definitely the depraved bisexual, which is usually like, if you're going to have a bisexual, they usually want to like give it across that like they're morally corrupt, or they're just really sleazy. Like the whole idea is, well, they're attracted to both sexes. That just means they have no standards. They'll fuck anything. It's basically... Like you see it again and again in so many movies. Like usually, especially a lot of these movies where they have a bisexual, the character's almost always a villain. It's usually the bad guy. They'll have like a scene where the bad guy is like having sex with a girl, but then they say, "Oh, look, he's into men too." Like, "Oh, he's so evil and stuff." Women too. I don't know. Like I said, I'll try not to go too much on it, but it's a little bit here. It's sort of clunkily done with Heinrich. He's really a bizarre character, and they just sort of pile that on top of him too. Oh, he's bisexual too, so he's a real weirdo.
Yeah, Heinrich's pretty funny. I like his character. Sam Neill's like, "You want me to break the fucking door down?" He's like, "You don't have to. It's unlocked. Come on in." And it's just pretty funny. I never made the comparison between him and
Tim Robbins.
Tim Robbins, that's right.
Yeah. Oh no, I probably wouldn't have either if that wasn't like the last movie we did. But it is kind of funny because they're both sort of are similar. It's like, this is who your wife or girlfriend's with now. This more modern man. He's in touch with his feelings, and he's supposed to be more mature and all this stuff. And how infuriating it is, because if you ever find yourself in a position like where your spouse or other or whatever is cheating on you, and you confront that person, it's more annoying if they want to take that road. Like, you'd rather just be like, all right, let's fight, I'll punch your lights out, you don't want them going, oh, come on, we're adults and we're evolved, let's be blah, 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 mature about it. Like, all I can think is like, that would just add to my rage. I'm like, oh, shut the hell up.
Yeah.
And he does like have one of those like rambling conversations when he first comes in the first time, because he doesn't believe that his wife isn't there. So he roams throughout the huge apartment looking for him well, they talk the whole time, and he's just, again, just saying all this really annoying, condescending type stuff to him, and you're just like, I don't know.
About feelings, and let's talk about how that makes you feel.
Mm-hmm. It makes me feel like I want to punch your lights out. And then, of course, the added insult is once they finally do sort of attack him, like, he's a better fighter.
Yeah.
Like,
totally. Yeah.
He takes him out quite easily with, like, I think some kung fu or something like that. And, like, busts his nose open. But
very, very easily.
Yes, but so to back up, this movie, it was shot and is set in West Berlin. So that's another sort of odd thing going on in the movie. So you already have sort of like this really sort of intense drama, and then you get into like weird supernatural stuff to horror elements. And again, we talk about it's an allegory for divorce and the ugliness of divorce and destructiveness, blah, blah, blah. But then you also have this Cold War vibe running through the movie, too, because obviously, if you're ever, this is, you know, it was shot in 1980, came out in 81, Cold War's in full swing. And obviously, if you're going to do a movie that's going to have a Cold War sort of feel, there's no better city in the entire world than Berlin. To younger viewers, there was a wall, and Berlin was cut in half. So, you know, the west side and the east side. So we get off from the beginning is that Sam Neill has been away for a while on work. But what kind of work? Well, apparently he's some sort of government agent. We don't know for what government. Like, is he working for the German government? He's working for the British government? Like, I have no idea, right? But, like, the whole idea is, like, so again, Cold War intrigue going on. He's some sort of agent. He's been on assignment. They talk about how he was tailing some sort of subject and stuff like that.
Okay. See, I thought the majority of it took place in France, and he was working in Berlin, and he was a spy working in Berlin. But I could have been wrong about all that.
He's living in Berlin too. Like, he's been away. Like, apparently, right. I don't know where he was, but yeah, he lives in Berlin, and that's where he's raising his kid and stuff.
Yeah, it doesn't really go into any detail on any of that. Really, it's kind of, you know.
Right, but then when you jump around, circle back to the ending, it's very apocalyptic and strange.
Yeah,
it's odd. It's to me, that's kind of the oddest aspect of the movie, because the other stuff I kind of get, but the Cold War, political intrigue, you know, stuff feels really odd juxtaposed with that and mixed in. It feels really odd, especially considering it is kind of absent for a lot of the movie, except for, again, some deliberate decisions by the director, obviously, in that, you know, whenever we see, like, him out in the city and stuff like that, like, it is almost empty. It's like Berlin. It's like nobody lives here. You know, it's just sort of just an empty city with very stark backgrounds and surroundings and stuff. And you rarely see, like, you never see crowds ever. Like, most people you ever see at once is towards the end of the movie when maybe some cops show up.
Yeah.
But most of the time, there's never, like, more than, like, 3 characters anywhere. There's some scenes at the school where you get a group of children. So you do get that. But besides that, Berlin is like a dead city. You don't see a lot of cars or traffic. You don't see crowds. You don't see people coming in and out of stores. It's all very desolate, which I'm sure was a deliberate choice. And again, part of sort of the whole Cold War paranoia type setting. Berlin was certainly a city on edge, more so than most at the time. And of course, there was a lot of political intrigue. There were a lot of agents and stuff and counter-agents running around back and forth, you know, having their clandestine meetings and stuff like that. And, I mean, I get all that, but it seems kind of like an odd choice for this kind of movie. It's not exactly a criticism. I'm just saying it's weird.
Yeah, it almost seems like it's not intentional. I don't know. It is a very odd choice to just have it going on in the background. You know, it's not even. Yeah.
Well, I mean, in 99% of movies where the main character is like a government agent, that's like the plot. Yeah. You know, in this, it's just like, okay, that's a reason why he was gone. And that's it. It's like you could have come up with any reason why he was gone for work. You could have been on an ordinary business trip. You could have been on a goddamn fishing trip. The only thing you needed to establish was that he was gone for a while. And while he was gone, you know, this rift started and she started seeing Heinrich. And then, of course, there's the flashback where she first talked about her weird, goopy miscarriage.
So you've got an international spy who, when he gets back, his wife says that she's leaving him and she's seeing somebody else. And he's like, well, are you having sex with him? Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy sex with him more than sex with me? Yes.
Yeah.
Which is a question you never want to ask.
No, but again, that kind of reminds me of High Fidelity, where it really gets to the heart of the matter, because he's asking about sex and she gets exasperated. It's like, really, that's what you care about? And he goes, yes. And I have to say, that's usually kind of at least the male perspective on it. I mean, obviously the emotional stuff does bother us, but if, you know, we find out you're with another man, like, what we're picturing and what we're dreading is the physical intimacy the woman is having with him, you know.
And that's even kind of the difference between men and women in that regard. Women are more concerned with the emotional, you know, relationship. I mean, for the most part.
Sure, but not to get into it too much, but I mean, if it's a good relationship, to me, the whole point is that the sex ties into the emotion.
Right, right.
And yet they always act like it's two separate things.
But isn't that like haven't you heard like you cheated on me emotionally?
Yeah.
And it was female, and but you confided in her, and I mean, what difference would it make?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if it was a man, you wouldn't say that.
Probably not. But yeah, just one of the many differences between the sexes, some of which are highlighted in this film. Yeah. Oh yeah, I was just talking about the goopy effects. That's probably one of the reasons why it managed to get banned. The effects were by Carlo Rambaldi, by the way. Somewhat reminiscent of something like The Thing, or even some of Cronenberg's works.
Mm-hmm.
We've been talking about Cronenberg lately, and I've been reading a book on him, so it's been on our mind. And as we said, we did a Videodrome last year, and we'll probably do another couple Cronenbergs on the show because we're fans and stuff. So we've all been thinking of it. You can see some of those elements in this movie. One of the things that reminds me of it is that a lot of Cronenberg's movies have sort of like a sterilization and a coldness to them in a way. I think this movie does too. Except it's a little less because it's a little more arty in its approach.
Mm-hmm.
Not quite as dirty and dingy. Because even when they're showing this desolate city, it's still kind of it's still a little more romantic in a way, just because of, again, the old world city and the architecture and stuff like that. There's a really like that when she at some point she gets herself a separate apartment that she goes to so that she can raise her horrible offspring thing. And while the inside is like this, just completely old, unfurnished apartment, the building itself is really cool looking from the outside.
Yeah.
It's some really nice architecture. And those elements remind me a bit of both the story, but of course the first Hellraiser.
Yeah.
Because you have this whole thing of a woman. In this one, she's not deliberately luring men, but in Hellraiser, she's deliberately luring men so she can kill them, so that the weird monstrosity that she's in love with or taking care of with can like feed on it and grow. That's Max or whatever his name is in the other, which is a little more deliberate, but I mean, still comes down to the same thing. Several times, men visit her apartment, trying to figure things out. The first one is a private detective that Sam Neill hires to investigate her and stuff, and she's the one who winds up killing him, and she kills somebody else too, who comes looking for the detective.
Oh, that's his boyfriend.
The detective's boyfriend. And I don't know, like, it's never really exactly implied, like, if the thing feeds on them or if that's how it grows, but I mean, she hacks them up, so...
Yeah, puts them in the fridge.
There's never a scene of it like absorbing it or anything like that, but it almost seems like, again, as somebody who's seen Hellraiser, it seems to me like I just make that connection in my mind that, okay, this thing is growing and it's absorbing like the blood and stuff from these guys that she's killing.
I don't even think Clive Barker had written The Hellbound Heart at that point, had he?
I don't think so. I think that was around 84, 85.
He wrote it and then immediately did the movie pretty soon after, didn't he? Like, he was already writing a screenplay as soon as he had the movie finished.
The Hellbound Heart was part of the first volume of Books of Blood, so that makes it written maybe in 83 at the absolute earliest, I think. I mean, but yeah, definitely some similarities there.
Yeah.
And also, again, some sort of goopiness in it. Like Frank, that was his name, Frank. When you see Frank regenerating, because the whole thing is first he's just like this man without any skin or anything. He's just this horrible, goopy, bloody character. Same thing with what she gives birth to. And I'm jumping ahead a little here, but what is it she says when she's talking about it? Was that there were two. There were twins. The first one was like her weird miscarriage in the subway before Sam Neill comes back, and then there's the one that lived. But she refers to them as like sisters.
Yeah,
one is like
Chance.
Chance and Fate or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
And that whole sister thing, just her saying sisters, just reminds me of like Argento, like Argento, like his sister's trilogy and stuff like that. So yeah, there's a few things, some from classic horror that it has some parallels and similarities to.
Yeah, Sister Fate and Sister Chance. You're right.
Yeah, Sister Fate and Sister Chance.
I
love her demon tentacle thing.
She that actress won the leading actress at Cannes Film Festival that year. Was it Isabella Adjani? And she does a great job. I really think her performance. He mentioned Cronenberg earlier. It reminded me a lot of what is it, Samantha Eggar in The Brood.
In The Brood, yeah.
There's just some similarities there too. Flipping out all over the place. There was a lot of Cronenberg-esque things in here.
Mm-hmm. And you have to give credit to the actress because this is an attractive, leading actress that could, do all sorts of parts, and she chose a very strange part that, on her part, required a lot of intensity and stuff, and things making her look, not attractive and insane and stuff. And she just went all out. I mean, the movie's full of her like flipping out, but then the pinnacle of that is the flashback scene where she talks about the first miscarriage, whatever it is, because that's like a full 5 minutes of her like down in this subway tunnel, just losing her mind. Like, I feel like he just told her to go.
Yeah. The director just said go, and she just kept going and waiting for him to say cut, but he never did.
Yeah, and screeching. The only thing is, I guess, because of limitations with the effects, there is a part, like, a lot of it is a long shot, but then once she like sinks down like to her knees, they have to do a cut just so that they can set up the effect shot, because that's like when it starts coming out of her and pooling under her. There's a few times where there's a couple cuts that feel kind of blatant. That's one of them. There's another really weird one. Like that one, again, I get why they had to do it because they were trying to set up the effect shot. But there's a really weird one later in the movie. One of his later encounters. It might even be in the bathroom before he kills Heinrich. But there's a part. Yeah, there's a part where, okay, so this is after she has attacked. Heinrich has come to visit her and she attacked him. He manages to get away. And then Heinrich, in his after being attacked and seeing the weird monstrosity, he, in his like fear and desperation, actually calls up Sam Neill to say, we got to do something. And they meet in a bar, again in a very desolate Berlin. They meet in this bar, and they're in the bathroom talking. He's ranting and raving, and he's saying he doesn't believe him, even though he does, because even though at this point Sam Neill has not seen the monstrosity, he's certainly aware of her crazy behavior and violence and stuff like that. It's another really odd look at his character, too, because basically, I mean, he winds up murdering Heinrich, and there's no point to it except that he wants to. Like, he doesn't like Heinrich, so here's a chance to kill him. He's not killing him for any sort of gain that, like, sets him up in any way. It's just like, I can kill this guy because I don't like him.
Well, maybe just to protect his wife, because, I mean, obviously he still loves her. And, maybe to protect her from Heinrich, maybe going to the cops.
I suppose so, because I mean, at this point, that's the other weird thing, and I guess it sort of does tie in with, in reality, like an ugly divorce or breakup, is that like sometimes, like even though through all that you sort of, you go to extremes, you hate each other and you're lashing out at each other and saying horrible things and maybe even hitting each other, and yet they still are sort of on the same team anyway. Like he keeps coming back to her, and they keep having like trying to act. That's one of the really weird things is like. They have like with this huge blow up scene, she's flipping out and screaming, he's saying all these things, and then a few scenes later, they're back together again talking. Oh, I know. As if there's no way out of it.
I feel like the Cops theme song should have started playing, because it reminds me of like an episode of Cops where they're like fighting, and then all of a sudden they're making up, immediately right after, and they love each other.
The cops go to arrest them. The girlfriend's like, "Don't arrest him! Like you called us." Like, no, don't arrest him. And I mean that happens all the time in real life.
That's kind of what it reminded me of. It's such a horrible relationship. Like, end this thing, please.
Mm-hmm.
It's so
especially
violent,
because they have a kid, right? Well, that's the thing that really perverts this. And the really odd thing is they have a little boy who, despite all the stuff that's going on, has managed to remain normal. Like somehow he's a pretty normal little boy, which is like amazing considering what's around him and the environment he's living in.
Well, and she left him alone for who knows how long, days, to fend for himself in the, the
at one point. Yeah, at one point early in the movie, Sam Neill comes to find her, and she's been gone. He finds the kid like living in squalor. I mean, right there, that would be him flipping out, saying, "Okay, not only is this over, but I have to take the kid away from you now because you're an endangerment." But there's no point ever in this movie where Sam Neill's character says, like, "Oh, you're an endangerment to the kid and yourself. You're self-harming," because she like cuts herself in the neck with an electric knife and stuff like her. Yeah. Those electric turkey carver things and stuff like that. Like, there's never a point where he like tries to have her committed or arrested or take her to a doctor. No, it's just like, this is our problem, we'll deal with it, which is pretty crazy. So he's a really unbalanced character himself in the way he reacts to this shit.
Well, yeah, I mean, she cuts her neck with the carving knife or whatever, and then he starts sawing up his arm like it's a
like he wants to see what it feels like. Yeah, it's like, let's see how that feels. Yeah. So, it's a really crazy toxic relationship. But anyway, I got off track there. What I meant was, so that whole thing before killing Heinrich, when they talk, there's this part where Heinrich's, it's sort of a longer shot where, like, the camera's sort of panning around and he's ranting and raving to him. And then suddenly it cuts, and suddenly the camera is now right on Sam Neill's face, looking at us as if he's looking at Heinrich, and he's, like, mocking him. It's a really abrupt, strange cut.
The editing was weird.
Yeah, there's a few times where the editing just, I don't know. I mean, if you notice it, it doesn't seem like it can really be good editing. And there's a few times where it just seems like they made a point where they wanted you to notice it.
It very well may be intentional, just to add to the jarring nature of the film. So it's definitely different.
It is jarring because the camera is very flowy for most of it, and then they'll just do these hard cuts. Because people who've watched this show know we talk a lot about editing, and when we were talking about Ozu, of course, back in the day, Ozu was known for his steady cam and his long shots. You do a cut here and there, and we juxtapose that with modern films of today where the camera is always moving, which is fine, but also cut. Like every shot lasts 3 seconds or less. We're just jumping around.
Oh, it's ridiculous.
And this movie's kind of a weird combination of the two, in that you'll get like some nice long extended shots or the camera moving around. Like in the very beginning, when they had the scene of him being debriefed after he comes back, and he's in that and he's meeting those 4 guys. The camera does like a loop around. It starts behind Sam Neill, and then it loops around in a circle until suddenly it's behind them, and it comes all the way back. So the camera is doing a wide circle in the room, which is pretty cool. And there's a few times where it'll do stuff like that, and then suddenly cut, like right in the middle of it. It's really odd. It's like you intentionally put 2 completely different editing styles together. Like you said, it probably was intentional to create sort of a jarring effect. And I guess mission accomplished, because I certainly found it jarring.
Yeah, Zulawski, or Zulawski was saying in the commentary, he actually mentioned that if it was an American film, which his producers are the ones who wanted him to do it in English, first of all, obviously not his first language, but they thought it would play better in English versus being in French or German or whatever, which wasn't the case at all. But he was saying that if it was a traditional American film, it would have had like twice as many cuts is what he had, because I think even back then Americans films were tended to go like you were saying.
Definitely by then they were starting to do it more.
But it's
the 70s really was where that kind of hard and fast editing came in, and at the time it was sort of cool. Now it's just sort of been overdone.
Well, I mean, when you don't notice it, I guess it's not a big deal, So when it's well done and well edited, it's kind of doesn't become a problem. But these like the action movies, I think, is where it is really just going out of control. With cut, cut every 3 seconds.
And again, I get it for some of it because it's just shoddy action scenes where they can't do good, where the choreography isn't good. The choreography isn't good, or it's obviously stunt people in place of the actual actors and stuff, and they're trying to hide that. But yeah, what's annoying is like even in the normal dialogue scenes, they still keep it up. Like it's just the style. You go watch a Fast and Furious and stuff like that. and they're all having a conversation in the room while they're planning their heist or whatever like that. It's still cut, cut, cut. It's jumping from character's face to character's face. And I mean, that's just sort of the way most mainstream films are now.
Yeah. It seems unnecessary for a lot of it. I don't know. I guess
it can be done well. Like in the first Matrix, it's pretty fast, but it seems to fit. It seems to fit.
It's like, hey, Neo, do some kung fu on me. It's like cutting to the the stand-in, the person who's actually a martial artist.
Yeah.
And then back to his face.
But yeah, in the case of this movie, it's certainly an intentional choice to sort of have the two different sort of editing styles sort of smashed together. Like I said, mission accomplished, because if you want a jarring effect, I certainly did find it jarring. So yeah, I get that. Yeah, I'm kind of interested in some of his other work now, Zulawski, particularly the one that got interrupted by the government, which was one called On the Silver Globe, which was based on a book written by his uncle. And he started writing that as early as the late 70s, and then when he was filming it in the 80s, the mid 80s, I don't know what it was. It was some government guy, some minister of film position person. He got the job, and his first act was to ban the movie, and so it got interrupted. And it wasn't until 1988, and the guy wasn't in that position anymore, that they resumed the film and they released it in 1988. And what's weird is it's not really what you'd think. It was, I guess it was because of political things. The whole thing was also supposed to be sort of an allegory too, talking about how there was a battle between these two different forces in it on this different planet. It's about these astronauts that go to a different planet, but about being the Polish people's struggle with various totalitarianism governments that they'd been dealing with, since the days of the Soviet Union. And anyway, it sounds pretty interesting on the Silver Globe. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it was his uncle. I'm pretty sure it was his uncle that wrote it. Jerzy Zulawski wrote the novel. But it seems like a pretty interesting movie. Long though, it's a long movie, and it's one of the only ones that's the language is Polish. Most of his movies are French, in language anyway. But this is a Polish movie, and I guess about some very sort of Polish themes. And what's funny is he as early as his second film, a movie called The Devil, he left Poland because that film got banned in Poland. And that's why he started doing movies in other countries with actors of different nationalities, because as early as his second movie, he was already sort of blacklisted in his own country. So very sort of interesting career that I definitely want to look a little more into.
Yeah, I'm not really familiar with I want to say I may have heard of The Devil, but that pretty generic title could be something else.
Yeah, it's pretty generic, and plus it's weird because it came out in '72, which is the same year as The Devils, which is that that British film that was banned all over the place that I've always been sort of obsessed with, which was certainly a video nasty and all those things, and to this day doesn't have any sort of DVD or Blu-ray release outside of the UK, and I mean, I've since managed to see it on the internet and stuff, but I remember I really got stirred up about 2 years ago. It's funny because it's that time of year again. It's September, so that means here in Halifax, in just a few days, the Atlantic Film Festival is going to start again. And as usual, I never have enough money to buy a pass, because passes are well over $100. I mean, but I'll still be able to get to see some of the movies, even though all the tickets are super overpriced, because there's definitely some things in there. But anyway, the point was, a few years ago. Yeah, and the thing was, for some events, you would need the pass, and now most of the time I don't care about the events, because most of the events are just weird, gala parties and stuff, which you really only do if you were part of the industry and stuff like that. But for whatever reason, they were doing a special screening of The Devils, but unlike most of the movies, they weren't even showing it at the theater. They were showing it on a projector screen or something at a hotel downtown, Lord Nelson, and they're showing it in the ballroom there. And I would have paid through the nose to go see that, but it was pass only, and that was The Devils, and that really kind of stirred me up about it. Anyway, there's definitely some interesting stuff here. I'm going to see the house that Jack built's going to be on it, so I'm going to see that. I'm really interested to see that Lars von Trier movie. It will either horrify and disgust me, or perhaps titillate me. We'll see.
That's the new one he did, right? The newest one?
Yes, this is the new one, but the serial killer by Matt Dillon.
It's been like banned everywhere.
Yeah. People were absolutely disgusted by it.
Yeah, I'm very interested in that one.
Yeah, so I'm going to see that on the 18th.
Awesome.
Because that one, it's just a normal one. But yeah, there's a few different movies. And every year, of course, that, like I said, they do, they'll do like special screenings of like classic movies. Last year was awesome because I got to see the special restoration of Suspiria last year, which was so awesome. And I mean, people in Halifax know their film because that was packed. It was a huge event. There were tons of people there to see it. The only problem was it was too loud. I mean, that movie's jarring anyway, but the volume was up so loud it was like an assault on the senses. Man, like I can't believe nobody got up and told them to turn it down because it was loud. I still really enjoyed it. But this year there's doing a couple. I kind of want to see Solaris. It's one of the ones they're doing, but it would be hard because it's a super long movie and they're showing in the afternoon. And I could do it, but it's the same day as something else I want to see later that night. And I think that would just be awfully draining to like go down to the theater early in the afternoon, watch like a 3.5 hour movie, come home briefly, and then go right back out to the theater to see something else. So I don't know. I haven't exactly worked out the full schedule yet, but there's definitely a few movies that I'm not going to miss. Another one of the ones, special presentations besides Solaris is Grave of the Fireflies. So that's cool.
So you're definitely going to check that one out, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, just to see it in the theater will be a great experience, I think. It's another afternoon one, which is kind of annoying, but what can you do? I should have brought the booklet in. The booklet's out in the other room because it has the whole schedule and all the films that are in it and stuff. Another one is... shit. I already can't remember the name of it. But a recent director who had done something cool. Well, that's all I can think of. Somebody that recently did something cool, his newest film. I know that Andrew Garfield's in it. That's all I can think of. I'll have to look it up later. But anyway, yeah, The Devils. I was annoyed. But yeah, this movie's called The Devil. And it was certainly a lot less religious. But it was, again, sort of a Polish thing.
You're not talking about the Silver Lake film, are you? Under the Silver Lake?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Man,
cool.
That's a really good guess. Yeah. Who's the director of that?
David Robert Mitchell.
Right. And what was the last thing he'd done? Because he'd done something cool. That's why I was looking into it. He'd done a movie.
Oh, It Follows.
Yes, he was the one who did it. That's why. Yes, he was the guy that did It Follows. So yeah. So I'm going to see that too because I'm kind of interested in his work.
So there's a lot of buzz around that one, huh?
Yeah. Yes. So there's about 4 or 5 I've singled out, and that's a couple of them. So yeah, wow. All I gave you was Andrew Garfield. Pretty good.
Yeah, that's been on my radar too. I've been wanting to keep an eye on that one.
Yeah. Unfortunately, most of the ones I want to see are on the 18th and the 20th. Like they're all like on the same days.
Yeah.
Which is really annoying.
That always works.
Instead of being spread out.
But something I was going to mention earlier was, you talked about the overacting, and I thought maybe the language barrier, maybe a little bit of the reason for that. Maybe he wasn't quite able to pinpoint it because, his first language was, obviously Polish.
I think so because there seems like a lot of extraneous dialogue.
Yeah.
Like characters will talk about stuff, but then they'll just sort of keep talking and saying all this stuff that doesn't really seem necessary for the scene. Like it seems like. The point's already been gotten across, and now they're just sort of piling on it with a bunch of sort of useless language. I think that's probably true, that there is maybe a bit of a difficulty in the translation. I have to assume he wrote it in Polish, and then they just sort of translated it over into English.
Probably so, yeah.
But yeah, Zulawski's another one of those filmmakers who everything he directed except one. He directed a film in 1996 called Szymanka. That's the only film he didn't also write. All the others, he was either he wrote it entirely, or he wrote the adaptation of it if it was based on something else, or whatever. So he was always the writer, along with being a director, which are always sort of my favorite kind of directors because again they're not just taking somebody else's work; they're doing their own work and and stuff like that, which is
I can respect that.
Cool. Another thing that's cool about Cronenberg is that, Cronenberg did a few things, that weren't his stuff, but a lot of his best known stuff was stuff he wrote himself. But it is interesting to think about the stuff that he did pick, like something like now I'm on the chapter on the Dead Zone. Like, he didn't write the Dead Zone, but he still sort of made it his own in a way. And you could also see how, if you've read the story, The Dead Zone by Stephen King, how that does sort of fit into Cronenberg's world, even though it's a little more sanitized than his usual stuff. Because again, kind of like Scanners, the sex angle is pretty much absent. But for most of the time, Cronenberg's got sex. But yeah, so that's another thing that makes this movie a lot like Cronenberg, because you have sex tied into all this weirdness, all this surrealistic horror, including there's even a brief scene towards the end of her actually having sex with the weird offspring thing she's had. So it's something that she's given birth to, and now she's having sex with it.
Yeah, it's hot. It's just pretty hot. No, I was going to say, like, maybe it feeds off of sex, because she has sex with it quite a bit.
Yeah, because early on, before you see it, like, that's when because the first time another character sees it, at least fully, because the first time it's seen, it's barely anything. It's like a smear on the wall or something the first time. But the second time, when it sort of has a body and stuff like that, when the detective is in there and just sees it, and she's unconcerned looking, she's like, he's very tired. We were up all night making love. You're like, oh, God.
Yeah. He's a tired boy.
What's funny is the movie is... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say, what's funny, though, is another thing that made like the movie like play with my expectations is the title, Possession. Because it's not really about that. Like, in a way, you kind of get it. Like, if you saw clips, you could get it, because you see her writhing around and acting crazy. It's like, okay, she's possessed. But the movie never really talks about a possession or her feeling like she's possessed.
Well, it touches on religion a decent amount, and she says that God's inside of her a few times.
He says something like God makes him sick or something, or they talk about sickness.
Oh, yeah, that's what Sam Neill's character says. It's very odd. Did you see the scene where she was looking up at the crucifix and just kind of like just sort of chirping and making noises and stuff, which seems like they directly copied that in Bad Lieutenant.
Yeah, I forgot all about that, but you're right.
But it's very odd. It almost seems like they just kind of threw the religion aspect in there just as another level of fucked upness, because
there's a few things in here that I guess add to it but aren't really needed. Principally, to me, the weird political backdrop.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that's just something else,
And yet, since we can circle to the ending, when everything is we hear like some sort of like apocalypse going on outside, which seems to be tied into something to do with his mission early on. And here's the part I really didn't understand, because it's something that only brought up at the beginning, then brought up again towards the end, is when he's at the beginning, when he comes back, he's being debriefed, and they're saying how they wanted to go on another mission, and he's saying he's out, like he doesn't want to do this anymore and stuff.
Right.
They ask him a question about the man with the pink socks, because they say that was somebody who was assigned to be following. But then at the end, one of his like employers or whatever is in pink socks, and he's running around chasing him. And I think he shoots him or something.
It was one of the guys at the end. It very distinctly shows he actually pulls his shoe off to show his sock, and then puts it back on when he's going up the stairs. Which I don't think it's meant to have a meaning. It's all just
I read somewhere like it seems to imply that like by like killing that guy for what it's caused some sort of like domino effect, which led to like World War III or the bombs falling or something. Like, I mean, it's a bit of a stretch, but then again, why is it in there? Why is it in there? Like, so I don't know. So if anybody hasn't, let us know, because I'm a little out to sea with that one. I'm a little baffled.
You know who does know is Bob, because he immediately goes up there and hunkers down in the bathtub.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's pretty clear he drowns himself.
Don't answer the door. Don't answer it. Don't answer it.
Yeah. I mean, I get that to a certain extent, because he senses like the evil presence or whatever like that. So, yeah, it's kind of funny because it takes a long time in getting there. But yeah, another sort of thing going on here is because eventually the monstrosity turns into a doppelganger of Sam Neill. So now we have two doppelgangers in the movie, and we understand that both is sort of the idealized version of the other. Like, because at first it seems really weird that, like, okay, say Anna is his wife, but then he finds out that the school teacher, that Bob's school teacher, looks exactly like Anna, except she has different hair and green eyes. And so, and he even winds up, I think, sleeping with her. And she's all nice, and she's loving and attentive and takes care of Bob, and she's nice. So is she like a hallucination or something? Or like, is he projecting it? Because the whole idea is like, obviously, this is his idealized version of Anna. It's like Anna, but she's not insane. She's actually a good mother and a good person and stuff like that. And then as we find out, her weird offspring mutates and morphs and evolves into a doppelganger of him, which supposedly, I guess, is her idealized version of him. Because she obviously is going to pick that over him towards the end when they have that, meeting just at the end. Like, she's like, yeah, like it's clear to her, like, okay, he's going to replace you now.
Right. This is the better version of you.
Yeah. Which I get. It has a lot to do with the whole breakdown of a relationship or a marriage. Right. You know, at one point you loved this person, and now they're not what you want them to be anymore.
And you cause all of this destruction to make the perfect mate, you know, to change someone to what you want them to be. And it just seems like it's all, you know, a metaphor for, you know, relationships in general. And that's kind of what I took away from it the first time that I saw it. And this time, and upon like listening to some of the stuff I've heard the director say, I really don't think any of it really was meant to have much of an explanation. I think it's just all meant to be out there. It's just like an art house movie that you can interpret how you want to interpret. It's not like a definitive answer for anything.
Sure. I mean, at its core, I mean, I certainly believe in the whole allegory for the destructiveness of the divorce, how it emotionally breaks people down. But as you said, all the elements they throw on top of that are just to add to the surrealism, add to the absurdity, add to the spectacle. But yeah, the whole idea is the monsters evolving to replicate the husband. So it's her idealized version of the husband. Right. The school teacher, Helen, is his idealized wife. And then the whole thing about the end when the husband comes to have... So now they're both dead, and all that's left are the two doppelgangers with the kid. And the kid rejects this, you know? Like, he senses that it's just another sort of doomed, unhealthy relationship that's not going to work out. So he just sort of takes the other option and removes himself the equation by killing himself, which is a pretty bold choice. Well, but the whole point is, like, you know, none of it's literal at all. Just sort of works as an allegory and stuff.
You kind of touched on it earlier. I mean, you could almost take like an apocalypse, like he's the Antichrist type of look at things, because, you know, the way he kind of motions at that woman, he makes he waves his hand and says, "Use this and shoot them," you know, like shoot the cops when they come up the stairs. So you almost feel like he has some sort of power, you know, some sort of
I believe it. Plus, Sam Neill's already would play the Antichrist himself later.
Same year
in Damien. Yeah,
the same year.
Yeah. Interesting to see Sam Neill so young. I mean, I'd seen Damien. For some reason, he feels younger in this movie, though. To me, I don't know. And I don't know. Like, Sam Neill seems taller than I remember him to be, but then again, the women in the movie are very tall, too, so I didn't get a really good feel for anybody's height. Plus, he was always wearing very high pants, which maybe just made him look taller than he was. Like, the fashion styles, you know, early 80s Europe. He had very straight pants that were kind of high up on him. I don't know.
I'm a big Sam Neill fan, so I always get a kick out of seeing him in there.
Well, it's interesting because for all these years, you know, I always thought the weirdest thing he did was In the Mouth of Madness, but nope. This movie wins. This wins.
And oh shoot, I had it on the tip of my tongue. The space movie, the like Hellraiser in space movie.
Oh yeah, Event Horizon.
Yeah, I like that one too.
Yeah, Sam Neill doesn't shy away from the weird stuff. Give him credit for that.
He's done a lot of weird stuff. He even did the vampire film. Damn, I can't think of stuff today.
That I'm not sure I've seen. Did I see him in a vampire film? I don't know. We did do one other movie that he stars in where he's much more conventional, which was oh shit. I just want to say Adrift, but it's not Adrift. It's the other one. Dead Calm.
Forgot he was in that.
Yeah. He was in Dead Calm, which is a nice sort of straightforward thriller, which also is sort of about the almost breakdown of a marriage. Yep. Of course, they wind up saving it, but through extraordinary circumstances.
Yeah.
Because they have to fight together against a common foe.
That was two sane people, though.
Yeah, that was two sane people that were nearly broken by a real trauma and tragedy. You know, the death of their child, which, you know, in like 90% of the cases does break up marriages. And it looks like it's going to happen to them. And then it turns out like a wandering psychopath saves them.
Damn, Billy Zane saved their marriage.
Yeah, Billy Zane comes in and saves their marriage by giving them a common enemy to band together against and, you know, rediscover their love for. It's pretty interesting. But yeah, I know we already did the episode on that. I'm glad we did. I really think that's an underrated thriller, and I really like Billy Zane in that movie. He's really he's really charismatic and cool and interesting, but then very menacing right at the same time. I don't know. It's too bad Billy Zane's career kind of turned out the way it did, because he had a lot of ability, I think, and plus he had good looks that usually carry them. But you know, it just shows that even the breaks don't always work out. Yep. You don't always make the best choices with the scripts you pick and stuff like that.
We just need Quentin Tarantino to put him in his newest film, and that'll jumpstart his career.
I know. Come on, Tarantino, do it. Billy Zane's a nice guy. Zoolander liked him. He even says, "Listen to Billy Zane. He's a cool guy." Actually, it's not Zoolander who says it. It's Owen Wilson's character who says it. I hate that like I can remember quotes so well from Zoolander. It's not like I love the movie or anything, but anyway. Let's say this he says, "Listen to Billy Zane. He's a cool guy."
Yeah, I think one of the quotes in this film that really makes it for me is from Heinrich. "If you had only seen what I saw." Love that part.
Oh, when he's talking about the monster thing.
Yeah, that's I think that may have been like on the posters and stuff for the promotional.
Yeah, it's a cool poster. I like it very much, that we used for our thing on Twitter and stuff like that.
When I had originally purchased the DVD many years ago, I got my first strike on YouTube because of the breasts on the, if you want to call those breasts.
Man, it's YouTube, like, loosen up.
Yeah.
That's pretty lame, YouTube.
I mean, it's like, you know, you want to flag somebody for having, David or something.
Yeah.
Or like, some Roman statues or something.
Sure.
Nudity, shame.
Yeah, and there's a little bit in this. We get to see the actress topless a bit, which is nice. It's too bad we don't get to see a bit more of her. I wanted to see her from the back.
Unfortunate.
Very classy. But no, it's funny. I don't think you see her nude as her own character. You see her nude as Anna, I think.
Mm-hmm.
The idealized version with her crazy green eyes and stuff. It's funny because when I first read about the movie and it mentioned not Anna. Anna is the character when it mentions the school teacher Helen. I for some reason I thought Helen was going to figure a lot more in the plot. She almost feels like unnecessary, really. I mean, I get what they're doing with the two doppelgangers, stuff like that, but I don't know. Just the way I originally read it, like I thought Helen was going to be like a lot more important. The only thing is, like, she's just some sort of like calm, like opposite that's going on. It's like all this horrible stuff is happening, but meanwhile, Helen's like really nice and normal and taking care of the kid. Oh yeah, and she looks just like the mother. So it's like, here, that's a good replacement for your mother. Somebody who looks just like her and acts sane.
It's very confusing if you don't pay close attention. You can, like, what the hell's going on here? Why is she? Now she's nice.
Yeah, but I mean,
it's like she got a haircut and now she's nice.
As we said, when it first was released overseas, it was heavily cut. Like, I can't even imagine, because this movie is 124 minutes long, so just over 2 hours. And we both watched that version. But when it first was cut, it was cut down to 97 minutes. That's a lot of stuff cut out. Like, it must have been an incomprehensible mess.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's already kind of hard to follow because of
Right.
deliberate choices they made. But if you start just cutting a whole bunch of stuff out, and I have to assume they cut out the more subversive stuff, which is really integral to the plot, like, it must have been just a baffling movie to watch the 97-minute version of. Just imagine.
I don't think I've ever seen the original version. Because, you know, it didn't really become, you know, somewhat popular until it was released, you know, uncut.
Right.
Probably
Exactly.
because of that. It was a mess.
Yeah.
So,
But, I mean, this is a really good example of surreal horror. I mean, it's right up there with some of Cronenberg's work as far as that goes. And even I've read where it was some parts of it were compared to Repulsion by Roman Polanski. And you can see a bit of that too, because you have like the female kind of going mad, stuff like that. I like Repulsion more because Repulsion is only trying to be one thing. This movie's trying to be several. Like, Repulsion is very much a psychological horror movie. This movie is a psychological horror movie. It's a drama. It's an art house, surrealistic horror movie. You know, as we said, very difficult to classify, which I respect. It's kind of cool when movies don't just fit into one box. But at the same time, you get sort of a scattered delivery, which I think keeps this movie from being truly great. And it's scattered in all aspects, because it's not just scattered thematically. As we said, it's scattered technically with its weird editing approach and stuff like that. And as we said, the fact that this is a movie that was featuring characters, some who speak English, but others who don't primarily. So maybe the dialogue isn't all it could be. You know, some of the stuff is a bit awkward or stilted or unnecessary, probably because of translation issues and language issues and stuff. This is a movie, like, I think it does a lot of things well, but it's just doing so many things, it's kind of getting in its own way.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that.
I'm still really glad I saw it, though, and like I said, I'm interested to see more of Zulawski's work.
Yeah,
he seems like a really interesting type of guy with a very original kind of original. I don't know, but you know, yeah, style is a good enough word, sure.
This was originally released in the U.S. at an 81-minute cut. Can you imagine that?
Even more, jeez, 81. So anything with blood, anything with goop.
Can you imagine, like, renting this on VHS, like, expecting a horror film, and you get, I mean, I'm sure they cut all of that stuff out.
Yeah, so really you just get her, like, flipping out and them just yelling at each other and hitting each other.
I could see people being really pissed off expecting, like, the new, you know, body horror flick, but it's none of that.
Yeah.
Damn it, I wanted the new, you know, Cronenberg film or whatever.
Yeah. Like I said, and there's just a little bit too much going on, like that, and certain things just can't really be focused on. She's talking about the whole sister faith and sister chance thing. Like, that's never really expanded on in any way. Like, we don't really get to know what she means by that. Are we just supposed to mean, okay, she's absolutely crazy? But at the same time, we're never given a reason for any of this. The fact is, he's away, and while he's away, she has some sort of psychotic break, and then it just leads to all hell breaking loose in a very literal sort of sense, a very crazy sense. And I mean, I get it. Not everything needs to be explained, and again, the movie works well as an allegory instead of literal, but still, there's certain things that are just barely hinted at that could have used a little more fleshing out. Either that or just don't put them in. I just think there's too many things touched on and too many things mentioned. It's just trying to be so many things.
So Sister Faith was the one that was miscarried.
Yes. And Sister Chance is the one that survived and eventually became the Sam Neill doppelganger. So that's even the weirder part. So if you're literally saying what happened is, while he was away, she became pregnant with twins. She miscarried Faith, but Chance came through. It's called Sister, but was male, and she regularly had sex with it, and it eventually morphed into a doppelganger of her husband. So yeah, that's pretty up there.
So I mean, you know, we have a team of psychologists on that one.
Yeah, go ahead and dissect that one, Freud.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really probably up to your own personal interpretation.
Yeah.
But I mean, I feel like religion is probably the sister faith.
Sure.
I don't know. No,
like you said, they did have that moment where she goes into like church as if she's trying to like appeal to like the normal route, like, you know, the normal God. Like there's the Christian God, there's Jesus or whatever. She's
right.
And she can't communicate to him. She's just sort of whimpering at him. It's like, you know, she's been cut off from that world. That's been denied her. She can't have redemption or any sort of religious saving. Like it's cut off from her, I guess is what they're kind of applying.
I mean, they mentioned God quite a few times. Let's see, there's a postcard that says, "I've seen half of God's face out here. The other half is you." And then,
I don't even remember that.
I'm trying to see. I know Anna mentions God at one point. Anna says, "Do you believe in God?" Mark says, "God." And then Anna says, "It's in me." And then Mark...
Yeah, I just remember the thing about him saying it was a sickness or something.
Yeah, yeah. I know Mark and Heinrich had a conversation about God. There's nothing to fear except God, for whatever that means to you. And Mark says, "For me, God is a disease."
Yeah, that's it.
Heinrich says, that's why through a disease we can reach God.
Sure. Okay. Not the religious part, but the disease stuff is, again, kind of like Cronenberg. That's a recurring motif in Cronenberg's work, is sickness or disease and the way we transcend ourselves through it. Because you could obviously look at her condition as some sort of sickness. Obviously, she's got goop coming out of her. She's having hysterical, psychotic fits. And yet she has these moments of crazy, deadly calm, you know, like when the detective first sees it, she's just calmly standing in the doorway, and then she fairly calmly kills him.
Yeah.
Same thing. Like, what was wrong with the detective's partner there? I thought he shot her, but I guess he just missed her point blank. And then she just calmly takes the gun from him and blows him away. Like, so yeah, the other thing is the violence in this movie is odd because it's so awkward. Yeah. Like, I don't know, the way people clash together and hit each other and stuff is so false. Like, I was
You're
like,
right.
Couldn't you do it again? Because it looks bad. Like how is this guy so inept? I mean, I get they're trying to show that he's like paralyzed by fear, right? He's just seen something horrible and incomprehensible, and he's terrified. I guess, but still, like, it's just so easy. He shoots, he misses point blank. She gets the gun from him, no problem, and then just like shoots him like 5 times. Like, wow, you're inept.
It looked like she got shot, right? And then at the end, it looked like Sam Neill shot his doppelganger, but it just you know, it's like it didn't happen. It's like it went straight through.
I think what the point with the doppelganger was like, yeah, he's like invulnerable or something. Like he can't be hurt by stuff like he's a perfect being or something, right? Like so stuff like that's not going to affect him. I get that, but it is a weird sort of death too, because they've already been shot up by the police, right? The police have shot up and filled both of them with bullets. She's on top of him, and he like gives her the gun. She shoots herself through the back. And then you think, okay, now he's going to either finish himself off or lie there. He somehow finds the strength to get up and jump off to his death, which seems really unnecessary. It's like putting a hat on a hat at this point. Plunge to it again. And so, again, I was thinking, is there some symbolism here in him leaping to his death? But I couldn't really figure anything out. All I can think is, like, he's descending while the doppelganger's ascending. Like, the doppelganger breaks through the roof or whatever.
Well, it was some odd editing there, too, that almost...
Yes. I watched that part twice because of the editing, because I was confused.
So I thought there was a doppelganger at one point that was down there by where he was, but it was because it was cut so quickly. All of a sudden, he's standing up on the railing.
Yeah. Again, another really quick, abrupt cut where you're just sort of caught by surprise.
You're constantly... Is this real or is this what they're imagining? Mm-hmm. You know, you're never exactly sure what's happening because they're both dying. You don't know if this is just some delusion they're having, or he's having, or she's having.
Yeah, I mean, you could easily watch the movie and just think that all like the weird supernatural stuff is just in their heads. Mm-hmm. It's some sort of representation. External representation of
Heinrich freaking out saying he saw some crazy shit in the house.
Yeah. Again, it works fine as an allegory, but it's muddied by having so many different elements thrown into it. I think. Still a really cool film that I would totally recommend people to watch. It's an interesting film, and I'm glad I've seen it. And as I've said, it's made me want to look into Zulawski's work a little more, because it seems like he's a really sort of original kind of guy.
I would love to read a book by the author of that person that wrote that Cronenberg book on this film.
Be like 1,000 pages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you gotten to the chapter on Dead Ringers yet?
No, I'm at, I guess the one before that, because I'm at the Dead Zone.
Oh.
Is there anything after the Dead Zone, I think? Anyway, I'm close. I'm in the Dead Zone. The Videodrome chapter was very long. Most of the chapters are long, but the Videodrome chapter is the longest one yet, as you might imagine. But yeah, for those who don't know, we were talking about this book I got. That it analyzes his films from actually the first two independent ones, even before Shivers, right up to his one. The book came out in 2002, so the Spider, and it's not a book that talks about the external stuff. Like, it doesn't talk about actors really, or shooting, or production. All it really is like long essay type things, like analyzing the films. And it's super in depth, and it's super esoteric and stuff at times, to the point, like I said, like I'm not even halfway through the book yet, and I've already encountered about 4 or 5 words that even I didn't know. And I mean, I have a pretty extensive vocabulary. I read a lot and stuff, and he's still finding words that I don't know. I have to look up, because I can't even figure them out through context. Some of this stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
it's really heavy stuff. It's really interesting though. It's really heavy. But I like it. Definitely going to read through the whole book. But I'm pretty sure Dead Ringers will probably be the most in depth, because, as I've said, because he mentions it in other chapters, I'm getting the feeling that I think it's his favorite, that he likes it the most. So we'll see. I'll let you know.
Let me know how that.
Yeah, the book is, for those who are interested, the book is called The Artist as Monster, which is a pretty cool title.
It sounds cool. It may be a little bit too heavy for me.
It gets very heavy in places, especially with the male female stuff. Man, it talks a lot about male female stuff. I mean, not that it's not wrong. I mean, obviously it's
sure. I mean, it almost makes you wonder, was a lot of it intentional or not? That's kind of like it's being too in depth.
Yeah. I mean, I have wondered several times, if Cronenberg read the book, or if any of the stuff made him think, I didn't think about that, because it really goes deep.
Well, I think we're all on the same page with the stomach vagina, but once you get outside of that, it's kind of
really want to watch Videodrome again now, of course, after watching it. It's amazing how short that movie is. That movie's just an hour and 20 minutes, maybe an hour and 30 minutes. It just zips right along. And in many ways, it's very simple. Max is in every single scene. There's no scenes that don't have him and stuff. So it gets a lot done in a short amount of time. You got to give it credit. It conveys a lot. It gets a lot across.
I was watching an interview with Macaulay Culkin the other day on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he said it took them a year and a half to film that damn part 2 of Home Alone, because of the child labor laws, because he's in every single scene of the film, which I thought was funny.
That's true though, because they do have to change the schedule, and they're only allowed to work so many hours in a day, and that is true. Because a lot of movies don't rely on child stars to that degree, but for him, he's in everything's about him.
It was the Twilight
There's
Zone
really
movie,
no. Oh yeah,
that
changed things. Yeah. I mean, there were actual deaths in that and stuff. So I mean, it was high time they looked into it. I mean, it's good that we have these laws and stuff for that for kids, especially when you see so many kids are being exploited by their parents. Right? It's here's their cash cow. The kid makes it big in some commercials. Now they might get on a TV show and stuff, and the parents might run the kid into the ground if they think they can get him to be a successful actor, and they'll say it's all worth it. They're a successful actor. It's extremely hard, business to break into. So if we can get them through it, they're not going to be mad at us, because we set them up. But it didn't work for Macaulay Culkin, who divorced his parents when he was I don't know, in his teens.
Oh, did he? Okay, I didn't realize he did that.
Macaulay Culkin is the oldest person of his age to ever live. And it's funny because Home Alone is kind of like a reflection of that. The whole point is he's a kid that has to like take on adult responsibilities and thrive in the adult world. And that's all he was. I even remember there were interviews from like the Home Alone movies where like one of the actors said like he's like an old man the way he acts. Like, and this is when he was a kid. This is a kid that divorced his parents in like his teens, got married when he was 17, was divorced before he was like 20, you know, so he, and obviously had been working and like earning a paycheck. So he'd already done all these adult things that I wouldn't get to. And still he's done milestones I still haven't gotten to as somebody in my mid 30s. So yeah, he's like the oldest person, like in a way, with the way the sort of his life experience has worked out. I don't know. He seems like an okay kid. It's kind of interesting though. There's been no equivalent to him since, you know, there's no massive child star on the level he was. There just hasn't been. Not even close.
Like, yeah.
I mean like a child star that just like rose above the others and was like the it kid. There have been child stars to a certain extent, mostly doing a transition into like pop, right? You know, you have these various like kids that do like shitty Disney Channel shows and then they become pop stars. But that's really not the same thing. We're talking about a kid that's like the lead actor, the lead draw in like big like blockbuster movies, like big box office hits. You know, I mean, we're both the right age to remember Macaulay Culkin's rise. I mean, Macaulay Culkin, like circa 92, 93, he was just on the cover of every goddamn magazine. He was on every show. There was hype about all his movies coming out, even the shitty ones. You know, it's like, oh man, the Page Master, this is going to be great, or Richie Rich. You know, these are not good movies, but they were big, huge deal because Macaulay Culkin was like the golden child, hanging out with Michael Jackson, which I realize now isn't really that special. He would hang out with any kid that would let him, apparently, but you know, didn't know that back then. But Macaulay Culkin always defended Jackson. He always said, you know, nothing inappropriate happened. And he would have no reason to lie. He's one of the few kids that couldn't be paid off. He made just as much money as Jackson. Okay, maybe not that much, but quite a bit.
He did, so he did Home Alone and then signed on to do Home Alone 2 with the stipulation that he could star as the evil kid versus, you know, Elijah Wood in The Good Son, which I think is a really good film. Have you seen The Good Son?
Not really a fan, no.
You don't like it?
I just feel like it's, I don't know, just really heavy-handed and obvious. I don't know. I like the setup and stuff. I just don't really like the execution. But yeah, the whole thing was he wasn't supposed to be, but like he was gonna walk if he didn't get to be the bad kid. And I mean, he does a good job of being the bad kid. I give him credit. I mean, you certainly,
I guess, prevent typecasting.
Yeah, you certainly couldn't imagine Elijah Wood. Elijah Wood's such a sweetheart. You couldn't imagine him being an evil kid.
Well, I mean, he's one that's been around. He was a child star.
He was a child star, but he's not, you know, he never could be a leading man. I mean, he'll always be super amazing and popular and wealthy and successful because of being in the Lord of the Rings. But, you know, he didn't have like the looks and charisma and stuff to be a leading man. You know, they weren't going to be like, all right, we're going to put you in the next Mission Impossible. Like, no, that's not going to happen. But I mean, that's fine. Not everybody needs that. And it's cool. He's taken some interesting roles throughout the years. For instance, he was the bad guy in the remake of Maniac, which is pretty cool. So, you know, he's managed to take some sort of different sort of roles over the years. He's done some very independent things. He's in that Open Windows movie with the porn star Sasha Grey, for instance. You know, really? So he's able to take some. It's not that good of a movie, but it's worth a watch. Maybe it's one of those movies that like it outsmarts itself. Because it has like a few twists, and you're like, oh, that's a pretty good twist. And then they're just like, here's one more. And you're like, no, you should have stopped. You know, that's basically what happens with Open Windows. Where it does several twists, and you're like, okay, that's pretty good. And they're like, no, wait, here's the even bigger twist. And you're like, no, you ruined it. You know, Open Windows totally does that. But,
so Elijah Wood was in, he had a small part in Back to the Future 2, and then Radio Flyer. And then in 93, he did The Adventures of Huck Finn, which is the first time I remember seeing him.
He was in Forever Young with Mel Gibson.
That's right.
And his like big leading movie of the 90s was probably Flipper.
Oh, he was in Flipper too. Okay. Yeah,
so here's something. I think I've said this before. So throughout the 90s, my sister and I collected the now defunct kids magazine Disney Adventures, which is like, if you're a 90s kid, like the most perfect snapshot of the 90s you can imagine. Like everything you remember is like in there, and it's awesome. I have a whole bunch of them in the other room. They're technically my sister's, but she hasn't kept them, so I have them, which is awesome. So I can't remember. I'd love to show you which one it is, but I can't remember. But there's this great one, like in the letters section, because there's a section like, you know, where kids would write in and they'd publish letters, where like it wasn't even from one kid. It was like an entire grade 5 class, and they were writing in. I don't know why they thought they should tell strange adventures, but they had just basically a general complaint about Elijah Wood, or was it Elijah? I can't remember if they were complaining about Jonathan Taylor Thomas or Elijah Wood, but they're complaining about one of the two, saying one of the two was stealing roles from the other and messing up his career. I don't know if they were saying that Elijah Wood was getting in JTT's way, or JTT was getting in Elijah Wood's way.
In hindsight would be JTT got the shaft.
Yeah.
That's funny. Oh man, yeah.
As a group, this entire class decided to write the letter to like sort of complain how they thought, I can't remember, like one of them was lame and he shouldn't be getting these parts because they should be going to the real star, this guy. Yeah, I think they were complaining about Elijah Wood. I think they were upset that Elijah Wood was taking roles they thought that Jonathan Taylor Thomas should be getting. Something like that. It's hilarious. Yeah, I love that magazine. Amazing comics in there too. It's funny how you don't really know stuff back when you're a kid, but now when you look at it, it's so obvious. Like the comics editor of that magazine was Marv Wolfman. Like the name would have meant nothing to me back then, but now you're just like, oh, it makes so much sense. Great comics, and none of the comics, besides that, none of the comics were credited. Like they said, he was the comics editor, but the artists and writers never credited. Like
that sucks.
Which is kind of the Disney tradition, because that's how it was back in the old days, like with the Uncle Scrooge comics and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Like Carl Barks at one point was the most widely read comic book artist in the world by far. It wasn't even close, and nobody knew his name. And that's why he has the nickname the Good Duck Artist, because for years fans, when they would talk about it, they could tell his style apart from the other artists, but they didn't have any names, so they called him the Good Duck Artist because he was the best one and stuff. But yeah, there's a lot of people that just lived in the wrong era, right? Like nowadays, if you're successful comics, everybody knows it and it's awesome. But I mean, even somebody Jack Kirby's probably the ultimate example of a guy that didn't really get his due, but right up there with him is Carl Barks, who was an extreme old age by the time people recognized his talent and his impact on the industry and all this stuff. And it's not like he was making much money from it, because you just don't make much money if you work for Disney. It's the way it works. Yeah. They own everything and they clamp down and everything. But
I think they're still that way.
They're still very much that way. I mean, it's loosened up a little, but not much. It's still, which is again why they have such a history of driving talented people away, including people like well, of course, probably most infamously Don Bluth, but also Tim Burton, a few others.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Because remember, Tim Burton made the, he was working for them, and then he made the short movie Frankenweenie, and they were horrified by it, and they fired him. And of course, the rift they had with some of the which is funny, some of the animators that would go on to make Pixar, which they of course later buy again years later once it became successful. I mean, you could have had Pixar all along, you idiots. Anyway, Disney is just the.
Yeah, they're not. I don't think they're hurting too bad now.
No, well, they own everything. I mean, I'm not going to go into my normal spiel, but I just hate how they own everything. I just hate it. I hate that nowadays you can go to Disney World and you can see classic Disney characters like Spider-Man, Kermit the Frog, and Darth Vader. It's like none of those are Disney characters. But they own them.
Or name a Marvel character.
I named Spider-Man, but yes.
Oh yeah, Spider-Man, I guess, yeah. Well, technically Sony, right? But
yeah.
I don't know how that. I guess the film version belongs to Sony, but they're.
All I know is that there's a Venom. There's a Venom movie coming out, and Spider-Man has nothing to do with it. So I have no interest in the movie. It's too bad because the effects look right. He looks like Venom. Instead of just some goopy mess that they slapped on Topher Grace of all goddamn people.
Is this not Topher Grace? Yeah, come on.
And it's Tom Hardy, right?
Oh, that's right.
Like, and he seems like a decent choice for Eddie Brock. Like, he's not tall, but he's old enough. He's kind of built. That fits. So it seems like there's good things going for the movie, but I can't take it seriously if it doesn't have anything to do with Spider-Man, because Venom, his whole existence is from Spider-Man. Like, that's the point. But I don't know. So I guess he's not going to spin webs or anything.
And Sony's doing the Venom movie, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the Tom Hardy Spider-Man is never going to be in those movies?
Tom Holland?
Tom Holland.
As far as I know, he's not. No.
Okay.
So yeah, so it just makes me really not interested. I know Venom's coming out, I think, in the fall, and people are wondering, you going to go see it? No, I'm not.
I'm not that interested in seeing it. I almost feel like it's too late to do a Venom movie now. I feel like they should have done it right the first time. I hated Spider-Man 3 so much.
Oh, me too, man. I hate it with a fiery passion. I could talk forever about the things I hate about that movie. It does so many things that piss me off. I don't even know if it does anything that I like.
I love Venom, but the villains, but I did not like the movie at all. It was what was going on with the whatever?
Awful start to finish.
The greaser.
Yeah. I mean, I can respect the idea that Peter's being corrupted by the symbiote and it makes him act kind of like a jerk. But they did that. The way they do it is awful. Like, if you want to see it done right, it's in the animated series from the 90s. Because actually that's something they added. Because in the original comic, he never really actually acts different. I have the whole thing now. I have the epic stuff for when he's in the black costume. Like, he's in the black costume a long time. Like, that's not a short period. It's a very long period that he's in the black costume. And he's even the other thing I didn't know for years until I got the comics was, like, once he got rid of the symbiote, he didn't go right back to his ordinary costume. He just started using a black costume that was fabric. So for quite a while, he was, like, for instance, in, like, Kraven's Last Hunt and the Death of James the Wolf and stuff like that, he's wearing a black suit, but it's not the symbiote. He's just still wearing black. He's just wearing a suit that looks like the symbiote.
Right.
I didn't know that. But I actually prefer what they did in the 90s cartoon, because they have it that, like, he decides to get rid of the symbiote because it's making him act crazy. Like, it makes him really aggressive and stuff like that, which explains one of the reasons why it bonds with Brock and becomes such a terrible villain. It's because he's already kind of a lunatic, and now this is pumping him up and making him more. It's cool. Like, he almost kills Shocker. He's beating the shit out of everybody. He's yelling and stuff. He's threatening Flash Thompson. Like, that's all pretty cool. In the actual original comic, he doesn't do any of that. Everything's fine until for the longest time, he kept putting off a request from Reed Richards. Reed Richards says, like, it's such an amazing thing. I'd like to see it. He finally says, okay, Reed Richards, I'll come in to Four Freedoms Plaza, and you can take a sample and look at it. And when he finally does, and he says, this thing's alive, he freaks out. He goes, it's alive. I have to get it off me. And that's the whole thing. He freaks out because he finds out it's alive. He doesn't want to get rid of it because it's doing anything to him in particular. So I actually think that's an actual improvement that the cartoon did. And it seemed like they wanted to build on that in the movie, and then they did it in the worst possible way. It's like, it's so cheesy and schmaltzy and awful.
It's like the sharks and the Soshis exactly. Or whatever are going to show up.
The sharks and the jets, yeah.
Whatever
You're combining a couple different movies there, because that's West Side Story, but the Soshis are the outsiders.
Right.
I watched that movie when I was in Sydney. Man, I love that movie.
The Outsiders?
Yeah. It's a really great movie. Really great adaptation. I mean, it's a wonderful book, and it's a wonderful movie adaptation. Really done well. Yep. Just loaded with future stars. They were all young then, and they weren't names. That movie had
Ralph Macchio,
Matt Dillon.
What's the dancer guy?
Patrick Swayze.
Patrick Swayze.
Matt Dillon, Emilio Estevez.
Oh yeah! Wow.
Thomas C. Howell, to a lesser extent, he was one of the main characters, but he wouldn't go on to be as big a star as the rest of them.
He was big in the 80s.
Big in the 80s. He's in one of my favorite movies. The Hitcher. I love that movie.
See, Quentin Tarantino needs to put see Thomas Howell in his newest film too.
Yes. All right. You know what you need to do. I want to see Billy Zane and Thomas C. Howell as, like, I don't know, international assassins or something. I don't know. Put them in Kill Bill 3 as the new Cobras or whatever. Come on.
You say that, man, but that's not a bad idea. Those guys are both good actors. I mean, they could do a great job.
You can totally see it working. I mean, no offense, but I'm sick of Michael Madsen. I'm sick of him, man. He's cool, but I'm tired of seeing him. He can sit this one out. He'll be okay. You don't need to keep reusing him as he gets older and crustier and older and crustier. I mean, there's a point. We've reached a point of diminishing returns with Michael Madsen. Is all I'm saying. Like, he's gone past his best before or whatever. Still like him, love his work, respect his body of work. I'm not saying he should never be in movies again. He can still be in movies. I'm just saying he can give up his spot for one of those neglected guys in the next Tarantino.
Sure.
So, I mean, Thomas C. Howell, it's funny. You know, he's somebody that I never think about anymore, even though I remember that. But, like, about 7 or 8 years ago, there was an arc on a show I watched for a while called Criminal Minds. It was a big show. I'm sure you know, everybody knows it. And he was like this crazy serial killer that was stalking one of the main characters, and he was really good.
Wow. Yeah.
He even kills the wife of them, the guy that kicked off the show recently for being a jerk. I don't know, but his.
I know you're talking about, yeah.
Gibson or something. I don't know. Anyway, that guy. He was on Dharma and Greg, of all things. But anyway, like, Thomas C. Howell actually murders his wife. Like, it's pretty heavy. It's another show that went on way too long. Like, he was in, like, its 11th season or something, which is way too long. But I mean, they definitely have some
still on, isn't it?
Oh my god. Is any of the original cast left at all? Like, it must have had crazy cast turnover, because I remember it's a big deal that Morgan left. He's on his own new show. The other guy left. Most of them left. I know that they added. I can never think of her name. Alicia. I think it's Alicia something. She's black. She's very tall. She does great voice work because she's an archer, and she's on, like, The View or something now. Or one of those shows. Aisha Tyler, yeah, she's in the cast now. She's been in the cast for at least 2 years. But I mean, I stopped watching long before she showed up. All I know is there's been a lot of turnover. But anyway, my point was, Thomas C. Howell's in a fairly long arc as a killer, and he's really good. He's really chilling. I mean, they've had several fairly notable actors play killers on that show, like Tim Curry, for instance. He plays a really odd killer, like a crazy two-parter. And he's all crazy and disheveled too, and they give him, like, rotting teeth and stuff. Like, he's really scary and stuff in it. I don't know. I can't believe, I'm not going to get into it, but I can't believe all the people that think, like, him as, like, Pennywise was good. I hear people, like, complaining about, like, the new Pennywise. I'm like, really? Did you like Tim Curry's, like, you know, bargain basement version?
Because I thought Tim Curry did a good job.
I mean, I like Tim Curry, but there's nothing, you can't take that seriously in any sense at all. Like, there's no way. I mean, he's having fun doing the role, but, you know, there's no way you could ever find any of that chilling or disturbing or even close to scary. Now I see people say, oh, the new Pennywise isn't scary. I'm just like, I guess not, but think about the alternative, man. Anyway, all I know is I don't even want to do the Sausage Factory anymore, because all people do now is bitch about Star Wars and it, and I'm just tired of it. I'm like, I've already said what I care to say about it. I don't need to hear it said over and over again. People in the chat or Mike or whoever, not trying to go on a thing, but man, I'm just okay. I get it. I get your points. Let's move on.
Yeah, I get the points. I'm tired of talking about Star Wars for sure. I wanted to talk about Solo, but we never really got around to it.
I mostly liked it. As I said, it could never be good enough for me because I'm such a Harrison Ford fanboy.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there was nobody that could step in. That guy had an impossible task. He reminds me way more of a young Kurt Russell than a young Harrison Ford. As I said, he does a lot of things right. Like, you obviously see how they really paid attention, because like the body language is right on. Like, obviously he paid attention. Like, sometimes he'll do that sort of stance or the way he moves. Like, so it's not like he didn't try. And I know I bitched about their heights, but I notice that both he and Lando are about 2.5 to 3 inches shorter. Yeah. Both of them are well under 6 feet, which is kind of weird. You especially notice it with Lando because Lando wears a cape. And if you're wearing a cape, you really notice it if you're not tall. So
yeah, I mean, I think that was the biggest complaint was who they chose, but you couldn't please people. It's the movie that no one wanted, and the movie that shouldn't have been made. I mean, it's a stupid direction to go in. I mean, that soon after you acquire the rights to Star Wars, well, you're already making a prequel.
He's a super popular character, so I get it. I get it.
Yeah, I guess.
I've only seen it the once. I saw it in theaters. I still kind of like it. As I said, I thought I was not into it for the first hour. It eventually starts picking up steam and it wins me over. But I was not into it at all for a long time. I was like, wow, I'm going to trash this movie when I get out of it. But by the time you hit maybe the halfway mark, it started to pick up and get better. I mostly think of it as a pretty good movie. It had some good sequences and stuff. The Darth Maul reveals okay, except I think we talked about how over the top they had to make it. I mean, do people really forget who Darth Maul was? It would have been cool to just see him, but he literally takes out his lightsaber, his patented double lightsaber, and starts spinning it around for no reason.
Yes, people are too stupid.
Because people are too stupid. Oh, it's Darth Maul from whatchamacallit. I mean, he's doing a communication. It should have just been him in shadow with his hood up saying blah, 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 everything's going according to plan. You'd be like, oh, cool, that's Darth Maul. He did survive whatchamacallit, and now he's going to... Instead, it's just who is that? So he has to take the hood back, stand up, take out his lightsaber, and spin it around for no reason at all, except for, brand recognition. Embarrassing. But, yeah, the movie it had some good action and stuff. Chewie was probably the best part of the movie. Chewie was awesome. He was the best character. He had all the coolest moments. It was a really great showcase for Chewie.
Yeah.
And the new Finnish actor that plays Chewie.
It's just really getting irritating them adding like Emilia Clarke. Totally unnecessary.
Totally unnecessary.
It takes me out of it when you put someone that's you so closely associate with something else. It just seems unnecessary. Why not just get someone else? But they keep doing that. Mads Mikkelsen was in Rogue One and stuff, and
which I was okay with. I was kind of happy. I don't really mind Rogue One the way a lot of people do, and I was really happy actually to see Mads Mikkelsen and Donnie Yen. I think they're cool guys that deserve to be in the Star Wars universe, even though they both get killed. But I mean,
yeah. Yeah, I'm just saying. I don't know why you had to pick those guys because I just feel like Star Wars is more of a thing. Star Wars made, Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
Who he is. I know you could say, and Indiana Jones, of course, but that franchise made those actors. Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill. So I feel like why don't you try to do
the ones beside Ford didn't really do much, anything that even came close to Star Wars afterwards. They just did obscure things here and there. Really. Right. Harrison Ford was the only exception. He went on to be a huge A-list star all over the place.
Right.
But I mean, yeah, for the others, our Star Wars was kind of everything.
Carrie Fisher did stuff. She was in The Burbs. She was in.
It's funny though. I was reading an article a few months ago. It's pretty funny that showed published some letters to some sort of sci-fi magazine back in the early 80s of people bitching about what they didn't like about Empire Strikes Back, just to prove that people bitched back then too and stuff. One of them was saying they were embarrassed that Billy D. Williams was in as a token black character. They thought it the role was far beneath him, that it was terrible, that they were just, shoving him in there like that. What else was going on? Oh yeah, they were talking about how, again, this is before the revelation of Luke and Leia being siblings, and somebody was saying how they just couldn't stand the fact that they were obviously pushing to put Han, the bad boy, with Leia, instead of the obvious choice, Luke, the good guy. It's once again, you're pushing this stupid girls fall for bad boys tropes when obviously Luke is the choice here. It's just bullshit storytelling. So it's funny, some of these really angry, snarky letters just ripping into what most people nowadays consider the greatest Star Wars film. And just how disappointed they were in this sequel. How much they thought, the first one was great, and now the second one was just shitting on everything about it. So it proves that even back then, there just wasn't an internet and it wasn't as big and stuff. But
what would happen is Leia would get pregnant with Han's baby, and then Luke would pay for it.
That's Luke. He's the nice guy. He'd do some sort of forced abortion. You know they can do that. There's no way a Jedi couldn't perform a forced abortion. And I can't be the first person to come up with that concept. If I am, I'm very proud of myself. Exactly.
Just kill all your eggs.
Just crushing it in her uterus.
I'm gonna raw dog that down.
But another thing I never realized until, again, reading some stuff from way back when, is how many people at the time, just because Darth Vader said he was Luke's father, didn't believe it. A lot of people coming out of that movie just thought, okay, Vader's fucking with him. They did not believe it. They had to see Jedi to confirm it. And I mean, I guess that makes sense. Like sometimes, like I said, I'm too young. I didn't see these movies back when they came out. It's interesting to remember sort of the context and how it was for the people that saw these movies as they came out. I mean, I think I probably knew that long before I saw the movie. I think I knew Luke was his son or whatever. You know, some of these things are just known in the world and you can't get away from them. So I didn't really get to see Star Wars with any twists and turns. There was no big revelation for me. I already kind of knew, you know, it's just one of those things that's out there in pop culture.
Yeah, I mean, like Luke, I am your father is like probably one of the most common movie quotes ever.
Yeah. And at the time, it would have probably blown movies away, like this idea that, you know, the Anakin Skywalker was talking about was actually the main bad guy. You know, I mean, I get it, but I never had that moment because it was just already out in pop culture by the time I saw the movies. Like everybody knew it.
Yeah, me too. Or by the time I was old enough to, you know, comprehend what was going on.
Sure.
I think I was actually present for Return of the Jedi, one of the showings of it, but I don't remember any of it.
Anyway, as I said, I'm sick of talking about Star Wars, so I'm done with that for now. If anybody has any more questions, I'm not answering them. I don't care. We'll move on to them. What is the next? I'll just ask one question. What is the next Star Wars film that's slated to come out?
I don't have any idea.
No? Okay.
I don't know. What are they doing?
Are they doing a Princess Leia movie? Are they doing a... I don't know. I think there's at least a few more sort of individual movies or individual characters that are getting their own movies, I think.
I know there's a Boba Fett movie in talks.
Sure, I get that.
Which they're probably already working on.
He's always been one of those super popular characters for kind of no reason.
But I mean, that's more of a character that could easily flesh out in a film versus Han, you know? I mean, come on.
Yeah, sure, because with Boba Fett, there's not much you know.
Right.
And here's a chance to fill in some gaps. And in a way, again, I kind of don't like that. One of the things that made Boba Fett cool was sort of being mysterious. They've had various sort of origin stories for him in the comics that have been since retconned a few times. Like, the earliest one was simply that he had been a stormtrooper that, like, killed his unit and deserted. And, like, he just became a bounty hunter. That's in the early Marvel comics. Then I think they did a different thing with the Dark Horse comics. And now in the current Marvel comics, which are the new continuity, I don't even know what's going on with Boba Fett. I haven't seen him yet because I've been buying so many comics lately. I had to, like, cut back on stuff, so I haven't bought any Star Wars. I have the two Darth Vader series, though, in big hardcovers, and they're really good. They're really good.
And there's so much of that to pull from. I don't know why they have to go and say, let's do a prequel. You know, it's so much out there. Like, when they announced the Han Solo movie, you know, this was like 2014, 2015, I was like, man, that's stupid. It's not a good idea.
No. Like, it's not a horrible movie, but it's just not necessary.
Exactly. That's the whole point.
And as I said, like, I don't know, he can never live up to Han for me. He just can't. But moving on, since we should. Before we circle back to the end and do a sort of wrap on Possession, I recently finished watching the show Sharp Objects, which we have both now watched. So that was a show I really enjoyed for the most part, and it makes me happy in some ways. Like, it gives me some faith going forward. Is like, because this is as somebody who's such a big fan of novels, and for instance, by the way, I never read Sharp Objects, but I'm just saying, as somebody who's always been a big fan of, like, a lot of books and stuff, and I've always been so sad of disappointing, crappy movie adaptations, this is the way to adapt most novels. And I know you can't do it all the time, but I mean, if there's a really good novel and people really want to bring it to the screen, don't make a movie. Do this. This is the way to do it. Make a mini series of a certain amount of episodes. and have a really nice, and obviously had a good budget, really nice actors in this movie. In this miniseries, really good actors, great locations. They did a great job. I don't know where they filmed it, but Wind Gap really felt real, which is one of the things I liked about it. You even got a sort of a sense of geography for it, like where things were. I really, they did it. This is the way you should do books if you're going to do a nice book. And so this is an eight episode miniseries, each episode roughly 45 minutes, give or take. And I haven't read the book, but I have to imagine it covers pretty much everything in the book. Given all the time they have. It's not a particularly long book, and they did 8 episodes and stuff. It just makes me happy when you don't have to just cram a bunch of stuff together, eliminate subplots, combine characters. Like, that can be done okay, but it always feels like it's a compromise when this is the way to do things. So I will just say I did not like the resolution, which I guess I really wouldn't like about the book either. I was unhappy with the way the story turned out. But as a whole, I still really like the series, and I say this is the way to do things. And I look forward to more series like this in the future.
Okay, so real quick, guys, we're going to do some spoilers here.
Spoilers on Sharp Objects, so yeah.
If you have not seen the show and you wish to watch it, go ahead and turn it off now. So you were not happy with the fact that Hannah was a killer, or what's her name?
Amma.
So you didn't like that fact?
I didn't like that fact, and I also didn't like obviously her thinking the mother was the killer. I didn't like that at all, because I was just like, okay, so here's the thing. This is a well-established trope in a lot of fiction, is that you have this sort of reporter. They don't have much of a life. Their life is the job. They don't have friends. They have shitty personal skills. They have a lot of problems. They're hard drinkers. In her case, she's a super hard drinker, and she's, has a fucked up past full of self-harm and stuff. So, she's a total mess. So for her life is the job. But the whole point is, but they're good at their job. She's not good at her job. This movie, this whole thing points out she is terrible at her job. In that, not only is she she's so wrong about it. On the one hand, she was not, you have to keep in mind, she was not sent to win. She's not a detective. She wasn't sent to Wind Gap to solve the case. She wasn't sent there to, find the murderer. She was simply sent there to do a story and cover it. And it is true. So it's not too much of a disappointment that she doesn't find anything. It's the cop. The cop uncovers it. And it's really, and it is kind of interesting that it's through her that he gets the lead, because he's interested in her. By looking up her and looking into the death of her sister, he uncovers the whole thing about her mother having the I always forget how to say it, Munchausen by proxy syndrome thing, right? So he's the one who cracks the case, which makes sense. It's his job. He's the cop. But I'm just so disappointed in her skills and instincts, not just as a reporter, but as a human fucking being, that she could be that off and that wrong and think that her mother did this and have no clue about the sister. The weird, wacky, super psychotic acting sister who I suspected from the very start of not necessarily being the killer, but at least knowing about it and maybe being in on it. I'm not trying to be an I told you so, I'm so smart person, but it's kind of obvious just that she's really twisted. And yet all that dumb Camille sees is, oh, she's an innocent victim of my terrible mother. And her plan is awful too. So the 7th episode ends like, okay, now she knows, or she thinks she knows. My mother who's done this. And, Emma's at risk because, she could do it to her too. It never happened to me because I was so willful or I wouldn't let her. That's the only reason I'm not dead. So I thought, okay, here we go. Set up, 8th episode, big confrontation. No confrontation. Instead, I'm going to go in there, offer myself up on a silver platter and hope I don't fucking die, and rely on luck and chance and other people to carry it. So that really disappointed me too. Like, to me, that's just a huge puss out as a protagonist. That's her plan. I'm going to go in there and maybe just on purpose let myself get killed. Maybe the truth will come out. Hey, maybe I'll even live. Like, to me, that's just a horrible plan. I get it. She's a broken sort of character. She's not a take charge. But I really expected more. I thought she would have, She had
no plan. I
thought she was going to entrap the mother. I thought she was going to put her into some sort of trap.
I thought
she was, and instead she's just like, oh, I'm sick. Here, you almost killed me. And that way the innocent Emma can escape. So I was really disappointed with her on so many levels. So she's bad as a reporter. She's bad as a human being and daughter. She doesn't know her own family for shit. Like, she's just a spectacular failure, and it's just kind of a bummer.
Well, maybe that was her plan, was to do what you were saying, but maybe she underestimated the amount of rat poison in the dosage, and she was like so weak she couldn't leave.
Yeah,
it's like, I was like, she's gonna take it and then go and get it tested or something to prove what she's given her or whatever.
I mean, it is possible that she did underestimate it, but what kind of risk is that to take? Plus, they do make sense. They say, the reason Emma was doing okay is because she built up a tolerance for her years. In this case, the mother, you'd think, would be smart enough to realize that and not use such a dose on her. Maybe she wanted to kill her. Who the fuck knows? Her mother is definitely fucked up.
Camille loves my medicine. Yeah. Camille loves my medicine. She's constantly giving her medicine all day long.
That's the other thing. She asks that. That's the other thing. You can say she underestimated the doses, but she asks for more at one point, which is fucking ridiculous.
I think she very well could have wanted to die, though, at that point. I mean, just think about the emotional trauma this woman's been through.
Exactly. And that's why I'm really trying, to back off a little. Because, as I said, I realize not everything that has, like, a serial killer in it or something needs some sort of big, crazy, like, heroic confrontation. She's not that character. She's not an action star. She's not a detective. She's a human being and a very flawed human being. So I do respect the story for sort of taking a different route, but I still can't overcome my personal disappointment, especially considering that it all turned out to be kind of for nothing. Yeah, I mean, yes, her mother definitely deserves to be behind bars, but it also proves how inept and stupid she is because her younger sister is the killer. And then I really hated how they show it in like half a second to us.
You mean in the
end credits? It's just really, really quick flashes. Really fast.
I thought it worked.
Really tell what's going on.
I thought it worked. I mean, it was basically showing you, not only the black girl that
I still haven't seen that. I have not seen that. I backed it up 100 times. I've still not seen the demise of the black girl. I had to read it on Wikipedia.
She was the first one. She was pushing her face up against the fence.
Okay.
She was the very first one that it showed in the. It is kind of scattered the way it's doing it.
Because I mean, I could see the one they dragged under the bed, and I could see the one that she killed. And by the way, her friends were accomplices. Her friends helped murder people.
Right. Well, I also feel that her stepdad is just as guilty as the mom. If he's aware that, not only did she kill one kid, but she's working on killing another one with, the poison.
Oh, yeah. His stepdad's definitely negligent. He just lets shit happen. He doesn't care.
What a fucking idiot.
Yeah. But, I mean, everybody in the show is kind of an idiot, which is sort of the point. Yeah. There is a good line, where the younger cop is talking to the fucking idiot, the completely incompetent sheriff that just wants, the easiest way to solve the case. And he says, he said, oh, that's what they all say. He's like, all I hear is bad stuff. He's like, that's what it is. Like 50% of it is like, they're all crazy. No, he says, oh yeah, that's all I hear is bad stuff. Everyone's crazy. And then the sheriff says, well, only half of it is true. He said, well, that's the problem. We're focusing on the wrong half, which is a sort of good line, which is sort of true. But I don't know. I was very disappointed. And plus, if that's the end, like, I don't really like endings like that. Like, what's going to happen?
I know. I know, but I mean,
she fully knows now that her sister is a killer. Yeah, I know. I mean, I don't usually have problems with open-ended endings, but I don't know. In this case, like, and again, I don't even know. Like, it shows how inept they are. Like, her sister just openly kills people with accomplices, and the whole town, they can't figure it out at all. Like
they keep,
it's supposed to be hard to murder people nowadays because of eyewitness testimony and all those things, and DNA and all this, and yet she in this day and age successfully murders 3 people, and you'd think that her killing the new black friend would be very suspect. Considering they're saying she was the last person to be seen with her.
Well, she needed more teeth for her floor. Her floor wasn't finished yet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I get it. She was mad, and it also shows that she just kills people because she just gets mad at them. She was mad because the black girl made fun of her when they were talking at the dinner table. She said, yeah. Even though it was just a joke, and it just shows like what a monster she is that she can't recognize that. Yeah. Which again is sort of cool. We have like this 15-year-old psychopath that'll kill people, but we only get it at the very end. They just say, "Ha! It was her all along." Like, Oh, but I didn't get to see any of it or anything. And I got to see her dumb sister stumble around her and constantly give her the benefit of the doubt, even though any other sane person would realize. But and I get it, she's so hung up on how much she hates her mother and the stuff that your mother does. All she can do is see Emma as a victim. It's like, yeah, okay, she's rude and she acts out and she's quirky and weird, but it's because of my mother who's so crazy. I don't know. I just can't believe a reporter, a hard-edged reporter, could be that naive, is all I'm saying. She comes across as naive and dumb and having no common sense, which is weird because, like, for the first 5 or 6 episodes, like, you really think, okay, you know, she's our classic complete mess and stuff, but when it comes to, like, you know, being tough and having instincts, she's got them. Well, no, apparently not. Like, so I guess that's why I really can't like the series as a whole. As much as I like so much about it, I love how it's shot, has a great feel, really nice visual style. I really like how they do, like, the little quick cuts of the flashbacks to give you moments of memory. I like stuff about memory. That's the other thing, though. I thought her past was going to come more into it. It really doesn't. All they're just saying is, yeah, she had kind of a fucked up childhood here. I like it a lot when something from the past comes back and really affects the present. And I was waiting for that big thing that happened to her or she experienced when she was a kid. It was going to tie into this case, but there really wasn't anything, unless you count, of course, the death of her sister. But
right. Well, I mean, I like how they were juxtaposing the sister with Amma the whole time.
Sure.
Also, and you know, you would see flashes of the sister, like the ghost would be sitting on the chair or something,
and again, I can understand how through that usage you could understand how she could be so wrong about Emma. It's because instead of seeing Emma for what she is, she sees her already dead sister, who was, by all accounts, a nice, normal, innocent girl, and she wants to believe that about this new sister, who she doesn't really have a relationship with. Yeah. So again, a lot of the problems I have, I realize there is a counterpoint to all of them, but just sometimes when it comes down to it, I still can't change the way I feel.
I mean, her mom is such a frigid bitch too. Like, it is, the stuff she says, like everything nice she says is a backhanded compliment in one way or another.
Yeah.
And it's like, what you say, you're just like your father. You're like not capable of it's, you know, it's impossible to love you or something like that.
Well, yeah. Well, she flat out admits that she didn't love her.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
She said, and that's why I didn't love you.
And that was like a touching moment of the show. You were expecting her to say something else, but she says that, and it's like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah. But, and that's not a criticism for me, because again, I mean, it fits, and it's not like there aren't real people like that. I mean, it's sad to think, but it's true. There are people that like had horrible relationships with their parents, and you know, their parents really didn't love them. You know. And I don't necessarily mean a horrible, abusive parent that was always beating them, attacking them. I just mean a parent that was just emotionally detached. Like, they just didn't love the kid. I know a lot of people think, oh, how's that even possible? But it is. Oh, yeah. It is. It happens. And it's very sad. And I mean, it makes good, material for something like this.
Well, what about her editor, man? Like, it's just like, hey, you know, I know Camille's having a tough time. She's drinking a lot. She just went through a hard, you know, trauma with losing her friend in the, you know, whatever, the cutting institution, whatever the hell that was she was in. And her friend drank a bunch of bleach and killed herself or whatever. And then, hey, I
don't know how long ago that was supposed to be.
Yeah, it didn't say. I mean, you would think, I mean, fairly soon, right? Like maybe a year?
I don't know. I couldn't piece it together, like how long it had been. I didn't know if it had been years and years or what. Like, I really didn't know.
But it's like the editor's like, you know, he's obviously really close with her, kind of like a father figure, you know, feels bad for her. He's trying to give her like a reason to live, I guess. So, hey, why don't you go back to where you came from, that shithole that you hate, and you've got all these terrible past, terrible memories. You hate all the people there. Like, I mean, the most unbelievable thing of it all is she went back to her house. Like, why would you go back to that fucking house?
That is awesome. Yeah. Exactly. Why put yourself through that?
And that's the other thing that really, pay for it.
And that's the other thing that really highlights her incompetence again. Because if she'd been at a hotel, you could sort of maybe understand how she missed some of these things. But she was right there in the heart of it, and she still missed it all. So I don't know. And I don't know. Like I said, some of the things in her character are just sort of so cliche and predictable. It's like, for instance, you knew that like she and the cop were going to have like a relationship, but it was going to be like not loving and caring. It was just going to sort of be ugly and pain-based. And you knew she'd fuck it up in some way. And of course, she fucks the 18-year-old murder suspect for no goddamn reason. and she does it, and she does it in a super public way. They both know, like, he comes saying, like, oh, we'll hang out, like, I know I'm going to be arrested. So they know the cops are coming for him, and yet they do it in, like, knowing they're going to be caught. Like, I get it. She's self-destructive. She's self-destructive behavior, but I mean, come on, this is going past 11.
It was so cringeworthy, man. So hard to watch that scene, knowing they're about to get caught, knowing what she's doing with this kid. You know, I mean, if that had been a 40-year-old man with an 18-year-old girl, it'd be completely different, right? Like, he'd be a perv, right?
Yeah. And this is just like, oh, you're drunk and a slut.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, well, she's a little more messed up than that, even. But
I think she really just got together with him because he could see her for what she really was. You know, she could actually be honest with him.
I guess so.
You know, her. You know, he saw her scars and stuff.
Right. I mean, again, it's not a criticism, but it does seem a little beneath a production like this to just, again, it's another cliche. You know, people that are sort of fucked up or have gone through trauma are sort of drawn together. Mm-hmm. I mean, and it's true, and I've even been in not that fucked up. I don't want people to think I'm that fucked up, but I mean, I've had a few relationships with girls where I realized that sort of the main reason we were together was because we kind of shared some traits when it came to trauma. Sure. And I've not been through trauma like, you know, this character or anything like that. But I mean, I you know, sometimes when you have some things in common, some pain or something like that, you know, it draws you together. So I mean, it is a real thing. But as I said, I guess what's most disappointing was I was all right with her being a super flawed character and stuff. But usually when they do this, they try to redeem them in some way. To me, she's in no way redeemed. And all it did was make her worse. She's this train wreck of a person. All she has is the job. And then it turns out she sucks at the job too. And, you know, you know, the real killer's still free and now living with her. And I don't know. I get that, like, I'm not disappointed that it didn't have a happy ending. I mean, there's tons of stuff with downer endings that I'm cool with. But this, I guess I'm just surprised the way they just keep kicking this main character around. I thought she would get a little win, a little redemption. And she gets nothing. In fact, she's probably worse now than when she started, which I guess is probably the thing that bothers me the most. That we're supposed to get behind this character, root for her, cringe at all her mistakes, because it's fine. She's a fucked up human being. Everybody has flaws and stuff, but she's going to accomplish something. No, it's all hollow and fake, and she completely failed. And it was all right there, right in front of her, and she still couldn't see it. You know, so it leaves a really bad taste in my mouth.
I feel like, you know, obviously I haven't read the novel either. It's next on my list. I'm going to pick that up next. But
yeah, thankfully you can still get a cover that doesn't have like Amy Adams plastered on it. And then that's not a dislike for Amy Adams. That's my dislike if I can't stand getting books that say now a major motion picture or now a TV, and you know they have a poster from that on it. I hate those covers. But anyway,
I forgot my thought, but
you said it's maybe next on your list to read.
Yeah, I know that. Anyway, oh shit. Ah, never mind.
You're reading through Night Shift right now.
Oh, Pet Cemetery.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, Pet Cemetery. That's right.
Which
I will probably have to reread through this fall at some point too, because I really do like that book.
I'm right to where Gage is about to get buried again.
Cool. But anyway, my overall thoughts are positive for Sharp Objects because as I said, I think this is the right way to do things. It's nice that we're moving into an age where this is becoming kind of the norm, where instead of like slap together movies that like, you know, have to eliminate all this stuff and change everything. Like it's nice to see a well put together, slick miniseries with good acting, good writing, you know, all that stuff. And I know I'm hard on Amy Adams, and I never thought she was right for the role, but she does a great job. She does.
I think,
and I got to give her credit. She must.
The cast does a great job, man. Like Patricia Clarkson, the actress that played Amma. Yeah, she's actually Australian. She does a great job, I think.
She has a pretty good Southern accent.
Yeah, she does.
But
my favorite part was at the last episode when he was actually reading like her whatever story she was going to publish.
Yeah,
he was going to publish. That was actually an excerpt from the novel. Is what I saw in some of the HBO stuff they were talking about afterwards. you know, she comments on herself like, do I enjoy doing that because I like to care for Amma, or do I do it because I'm like my mother and I like, you know, the feeling of wanting someone to need me? She actually does comment on, you know, am I like my mother, which I thought was really interesting. You know, like,
yeah, she proves that she does have some decent writing talent.
Yeah.
And as I said, but it all sort of winds up being wasted because all she's done is prove only half the story and get most of it wrong. So, and now you're going to like raise and look after the real murderer, apparently. So yeah, good luck with that. Maybe she'll kill you at some point.
Well, so what do you think she did? You think she turned her in, or just
no?
She turned her in?
No, I don't think that.
Really?
I think she probably said. I think she probably just said, "Okay, we'll let things stand as they will. Mama's in jail, but you can't kill people anymore." It's probably that's probably what I think she said.
Fuck that! You can't have that monster out there in the streets.
But she seems like that sort of character, is what I'm saying. I would turn her in, but but to me, Camille is that character. That Camille would be like, "Okay, Mama's in jail, and we're not going to change that, and you've killed people, and that's bad. But how about this? You just don't kill people anymore." Like, I don't know. She doesn't seem like a character to do the right thing, especially considering this was her chance. This erases her to redemption, right?
Well, yeah, now she's an accessory.
Yeah, exactly. Because her big redemption was saving Emma. It all gets flipped around when he finds out that Emma didn't need saving. That Emma is the monster. You know, the narrative worked out. Like, oh, it was really painful and horrible for me to have to do this to my mother. But the truth was, my mother was a monster, and she was hurting people, and I could have lost another sister because of her. So I had to go through all this, but I saved Emma, so I've salvaged something. But now it turns, none of that's true. Like, it is true that your mother is fucked up and deserves to be in jail and is definitely guilty of some stuff, but she's not the killer. And she never even says that she's not. It's like she's given up at that point. It's like, okay, I'm in jail for my stuff. Like, I know I didn't murder it. But it's not like she was protecting Emma. She definitely, like, the mother definitely didn't know Emma was the killer. There's no way.
She knows now.
Why? You think? Why would she know now?
Because they found the tools. The mother's going to get charged for those murders.
Yeah.
I mean, they found the pliers in their house. I mean, who else would have done it?
I don't know.
The pliers they used to pull the teeth out. I would think the mother already knows.
Yeah, I guess she would have her suspicions, at least. I don't know. But again, if the mother knows, she's not going to do anything.
Yeah, I kind of knew it from the beginning. I knew it was either the mother or the daughter the whole time. But
I didn't, but I did think the daughter was definitely really fucked up and more fucked up than they were even showing, and that she was at least involved. Like, I thought maybe she knew the killer, or she watched the killer kill people and she didn't care. Like, I knew she was involved, and I knew that she was definitely, like, conning. And another thing that bothered me, like, oh, she's just a trouble kid because she has to live with Mama. Like, no, you're an idiot.
Every time they brought up, was it John Nash or whatever his name was, the kid that they originally charged for it? Whenever they brought it up, Emma would say something like, "Oh, he's a pedophile, or he's a child killer," or something, like, every single time. So
John Nash was the father of the first victim, and the brother of the one they arrested was the brother of the second victim.
Yeah, whatever his name was, not John something. Yeah, whatever.
John Keane or something. I think maybe it was Keane.
Keane. That's it.
Yeah, maybe it was Bob Nash and John Keane, something like that. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, sounds right. Because they were the red herrings the whole time, but they were basically setting up John by, they dumped the bike in the pond or whatever there at the pig plant.
One of the workers said that he did it, even though they knew it was a complete lie, because it's like, that's a worker that works the day shift. It was dumped at like midnight, so what was he doing there?
Well, it showed her there meeting with one of the workers there too, so she was probably like blowing that guy, so he would say,
telling him that he had to do it.
Yeah.
My favorite episode is probably, I think it's the 6th episode. It's the episode where they have like their weird backwards Southern celebration.
Oh man, Colonel something day, whatever the hell it is.
Where they celebrate like their hero colonel that resisted the Yankees and stuff like that.
Just to let people know that does not happen. Like, that's not a thing. Like,
I was gonna say, like, I mean, as much as I enjoyed it, I realized that, like, especially for somebody like you who lives in the South, that maybe it it's probably going a little far or making it look like, oh, everybody's just super backwards and racist and crazy and, you know.
Celebrating the Confederacy all the time. No, that is not a thing at all. In any shape or form, and not even in Missouri that I'm aware of.
Yeah, probably not.
But
I mean, artistic license, sure.
Sure, yeah. A lot.
And again, I realize that is problematic. For instance, I just watched the first like 3 episodes of the show Homeland.
Oh yeah.
And I can't give that a pass for artistic license. I think that show is an abomination of misinformation and xenophobia, and no wonder people are like Islamophobic in today's age when you have garbage like a show like that perpetuating all these lies. Like, Jesus, I understand, again, poetic license and it's fiction, but I don't know, man. They go really far in their depictions.
Do you find out that he's undercover for the Al Qaeda or whatever?
Yeah, they like turned him. They tortured him enough, and they turned him into their own sleeper agent and stuff. That's not my issue. My issue is just like the way they show like Pakistan and people and stuff. Like at one point, there's a part where like an agent like gets outed or something in the middle of this crowd of people, and they as if they're zombies, they rip him to like shreds. Like, people don't do that, man. And they have all this like really threatening imagery of like the women in like the total burqas covering their faces, and of course you have the lily white blonde hero that has to make her way through the sinister. Like, this is a really irresponsible show, if you ask me. Not to go on the whole thing, but I mean, it really fuels a lot of hate, I have to say. Like, you know, it's really making it seem. I mean, I get it. Hate is always an important thing for a country. You always have to have a bad guy. You had the Russians and stuff, but I don't know, man. Like I said, I get it's fiction, and they'll say, you know, it's not real and stuff. It's just fiction, but I don't know. I figure there's a lot of people to watch that show and got a really bad picture of like the Muslim world or the Middle East and stuff, all based on that, because like they just show them as like awful, evil, degenerate people, you know, that are just at every second plotting to like destroy democracy and stuff. And I'm thinking, man, I don't know.
It's been a while since I've seen it. I don't remember it being that bad.
It's pretty bad. Like, I was pretty shocked by some of these depictions. Like, every time they like would show Pakistan and stuff, it was just like this dirty nest of subhuman people and stuff. Yeah, they show a lot of Pakistan in it. A lot of it's in Pakistan. And like, I don't know, man.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard stories from people that were over there that it's not a very nice place, and they do not like Americans.
Well, that's for sure. I mean, but, again, like all this stuff. Again, these things have nuggets of truth on them. I'm talking about that's what kind of makes it worse, though, because then that's what makes it more believable. Because they take something that is true, but then they really blow it up and like I said, I get it. Artistic license. They're trying to make an interesting show. You need bad guys and things like that. But I just feel like they went really far in the stuff I saw.
I've only seen Homeland maybe through the 3rd season, and I know they do a lot of stuff with like the people are taken advantage of by Americans. There are some that aren't terrorists, and they treat them like they're terrorists.
Mm-hmm.
So well, there's a lot of that going both ways. Yeah.
It's too bad, though, because I used to really like Claire Danes, but now I have a hard time respecting her for being part of it.
Oh, God. If you like Claire Danes, you would not like her after watching that show.
Well, I mean, I know that her character's kind of, like, mean and stupid.
She's got, like,
she has some sort of, she has psychological disorder and stuff like that. I mean, from the very outset, she's, like, conducting an illegal operation. But the whole point is, she's right, damn it, which is another sort of reinforcement thing that, I think it's the same way, like, a lot of people in the American public will be like, well, torture's bad, but it gets results,
Yeah. Mandy Patinkin.
Yeah. At first, I could recognize the voice, but I couldn't figure it out until I saw the credits, because he's buried under a huge beard. Yeah. But yeah, he's all right in it from what I saw so far. He's like a mentor to her sort of thing. Although he's constantly like saying like he's going to bench her, and then he never does. He's like, "You're a wild card maverick. You're out of control." And she's like, "I know what I'm doing, damn it." And he's like, "Okay," like over and over again. He's like, "Damn it, you can't do that. What the hell are you doing?" She's like, "Just let me do it." And then he's like, okay. Like, I've only seen like 3 or 4 episodes, and this happened at least twice, like every episode.
Yeah.
He like yells at her for doing something
that sounds about right
to do. And then like he just backs off and is like, okay, fine, you know, I guess you're doing a good job, even though everything you're doing is completely illegal and it could blow up in our face and cause an international incident. But okay. You know. I also like the totally. Now, it's funny. Now, I realized that just the other day, I kind of went on a rant about the Saudis and how hypocritical they are and stuff like that and how much they annoy me, at least the government and stuff. But it's still pretty funny. Like, the introduction of, like, this Saudi prince is that he's, like, this total, like, degenerate sleazebag.
Mm-hmm.
He's, like, interviewing girls, like, to see who he can be, like, his sex slave. And they're like, do you like anal sex? She's like, oh, yeah, I better say yes if I want the job. I was also really surprised by the uncomfortable sex right in the first episode. I didn't actually realize this was a show that wasn't like on normal TV. So I was like, oh shit. That chick was that MILF is pretty hot though. Wow. The soldier who gets turned, like his wife that he left behind, like it opens with her like having sex with some other guy.
Oh yeah, she's
really hot.
Yeah, she's in Deadpool. I mean yeah, Deadpool.
Is she? Oh, is she the prostitute that he likes?
Yeah.
Yeah. For some reason, she looks more appealing here, even though she's not as whored up. Maybe I'm into that suburban. Maybe I'm getting into that suburban mom look. I don't know.
She was in V. Did you ever see they did a remake of V?
No.
Wasn't good, but she was the main person in it, and she'd done all kinds of stuff.
Anyway, I was super attracted to her, and also repulsed by her too, because it's great. Like she she's like off like fucking some random dude. Then she comes home and yells at her kids. It's pretty funny. Like you're bad kids. Yeah, you're doing bad things.
Claire Danes has a really ugly cry face, and it's pretty much like the only face she makes in that show.
Yeah,
so
she's doing this a lot. She's like, that's what you have to do to like. If somebody has like mental problems, the best way to like show it on screen is like motion towards your head. She's like, like,
just show
I
her
have emotional
popping.
Issues.
She's just popping pills all the time.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure like people are saying, well, aren't you going to attack it for that too, Cole? Aren't you going to attack it for its depiction of mental health? No, not really. You know, I mean, it's different for everybody. It is what it is. You know. Because, I mean, I know there's a certain crowd that'd be like, you know, you shouldn't depict people with, like, mental health issues in that way because they can, you know, lead normal lives and blah, blah. And, I mean, that's all true. Of course they can and stuff. But that doesn't mean that doesn't happen. So, you know. And if I don't know. It is kind of annoying and gratuitous sometimes when they do use it as a plot point, though. Because it's like, she could be really good at her job, but she has to, like, struggle with her mental health issues. And she's always walking the line. It does sort of seem like an easy target type thing to make her more interesting, you know. But I don't know. I don't really mind it. People, I know there's a more sensitive crowd to that. We could say that it's sleazy and exploitative and offensive to people about mental health. Honestly, it doesn't really bother me because I'm just like, well, you know, it really is different for person to person. There's not one way a person deals with mental illness. There's not one way it affects a person. And plus, there's so many different mental illnesses out there, and some people have different combinations of them. So I don't watch a show like that and think, oh, this is showing that all people that deal with mental health issues are like this, because, I don't know, I have common sense, and it doesn't seem that. And I know you can say, well, the same logic is it's not saying all Middle Eastern people are like that. I know, but I don't know, man. Like, the whole thing is really just setting up, like, this whole shadowy, evil, other, you know, empire over there where the people babble in a strange language and cover their faces and they're subhuman. I don't know. I feel like it's gone really far. I'll watch a bit more of it because I am kind of fascinated by it so far.
Yeah, I mean, from what I remember, it pretty much plays both sides of that card.
Like I said, I haven't seen far enough to see that, so maybe I am being unfair. I haven't seen like them showing, like you said, maybe some of the corruption or hypocrisy on the Western side of things too. So I'll keep watching.
I thought it did as a point to, you know, point that out that was a thing, you know. Brown is a word for it. I can't think of the pop culture term for, you know, like driving while black, like DWB or I don't know, whatever it is. The you know, like the airplane, the airport security, the TSA agents,
Oh yeah,
particularly focusing on people of Middle Eastern descent.
Yeah. Like I said, I'll keep watching. Yeah, maybe it's a little too early to form an opinion. I haven't seen some of the other angles, so maybe I am being a bit harsh. I was just sort of shocked. I was just sort of taken aback by it that they were being kind of that blatant, I guess. But as you said, I should see more of it before I really judge it as a whole, because there are other sides they can show. So it has my interest. I think I'll keep watching it. It all just became available on Netflix, so
Oh, really?
One thing I do like about it is the structure. There are 6 seasons, and every season has 12 episodes. I like symmetry like that. I kind of get annoyed that most shows. I mean, I realize it's beyond their control most of the time. It's not their fault, but sometimes they'll be like season 3, 9 episodes. Season 4, 23 episodes. I don't like that. But again, I don't try to hold that against shows because I realize, it's kind of a live and die industry. They don't always know what they're going to get. But so I kind of enjoy the symmetry of this. Each season is a tight 12 episodes that I assume, each sort of follow its own arc. That seems like a good blueprint to me. It seems like something I can get behind and follow without getting, too confused or annoyed.
Yeah, I know it really just depends on the network. Sometimes they'll order, they like to pilot, so they'll order like 8 episodes, and they like the first season, so next season gets 24. And they hate the second season, so they only give them enough money to shoot half the episodes before they cancel it.
Yeah, so I realize that most shows are under those sorts of conditions, so it is kind of difficult. So I do like seeing a show that manages to skirt that, because it seems good. It seems like a solid plan to me. 12 episodes per season seems pretty efficient. Anyway, we'll circle back. So Possession, I'm definitely glad I saw it. As I said, it gets awfully busy, and in some ways I think it gets in its own way because it has so many different things going on. I think there's a few different elements you could have either toned down or even completely eliminated just to focus a little bit more on the main kind of story. But I'm sure there's people who might disagree with that and say, well, the whole point is it's supposed to be sort of scattered, and it doesn't really have a story. It's more of about a kind of a collection of events and, I don't know, feelings and stuff related to, at its core the breakdown of a family or a marriage or whatever, the effects, the emotional toll that a divorce can have on people and turning us into monsters, creating monsters. I get all that allegorical stuff. I like it, and it's made me interested in seeing some more of the filmmaker, because he seems like he has a very sort of unique kind of voice. It's cool to see a movie that can do sort of some Cronenberg stuff, because I don't know, Cronenberg has such sort of a unique skill set that if another movie is like trying to copy him, it usually doesn't work out too well. But I'm not saying this tries to copy him. I'm just saying it's cool to see a movie that's not by Cronenberg, that reminds me of Cronenberg, that is competently executed, I guess. So I just think that our director-writer here, Zulawski, it was sort of an interesting talent for sure. The editing style, I'm still on the fence. I don't know if I think it was good or bad. Like you said, it probably was trying to achieve a certain effect, and maybe if that was the point, then I guess it did succeed. So I can't really criticize it, but at other times I get kind of annoyed by, I don't know, like I said, the abruptness of some of it, how it would just be flowing in one way and then just do a really abrupt cut. But I don't know. Sam Neill's good. The main actress is really good. She carries the thing with her, crazy, insane performance. Pretty neat, goopy effects. Reminds you a little bit of some Cronenberg or maybe The Thing and stuff like that. It still seems a little odd to me that it's one of the movies that got labeled and banned and stuff. Maybe it's just because we're so used to seeing so many fucked up things that it seems kind of tame by comparison. As we said tonight, we talked about context. We weren't there in 1981 to watch it and maybe be more horrified. We're more used to this sort of stuff. But, I don't know. When you think of movies that get banned or movies that get all edited up or put on the video nasties list, you think of stuff that's a bit more extreme than this. This certainly has some extreme themes. As I said, if you actually talk it out, you realize how fucked up it is when you talk about having, somehow becoming pregnant or whatever with like twins and miscarriaging one in a weird, horrible, insanity, goopy sequence, and then the other one giving birth and growing like Frank in Hellraiser, and then her actually having sex with it and it replacing her husband. Like, yeah, it's pretty fucked up once you actually like put it in order and talk it out. So I mean, I guess I can get it. Some very strong content there, but I'm definitely glad I saw it. Very interesting movie that I'd recommend for people if you're looking for something different, especially if you're into like psychological horror, surreal horror. Neat example.
Good. I'm glad you got something out of it at least.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Cool. Well, guys, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up there.
Yep. We're in the fall now. We're getting towards the fall, so we might stay with a few more dark, twisted movies in the spirit of the season, perhaps. Mm-hmm. That's not the stone, but that's usually kind of the way I think both of us kind of feel going into this time of year. So it's possible that we stick on something like that, but still be something completely different. And as I said, I don't know how far off another series is. Our last series was quite long, so it's probably not for a while. But we have some ideas for what our next series could be. We're thinking about maybe something like Asian gangster films or something like that. There are definitely a few other things on the back burner that we're thinking of. So we'll let you know once we've decided what to do and when to implement it. But for now, we're just going with the single episode stuff. So as soon as we know, we'll let you know what next week's episode will be.
Yeah, sounds good.
So thanks a lot for watching, guys, and we'll see you next time. Rocket Dimension. That's Jam. Cole. See you later.
All right. Bye.